Chapter 510. What's the matter? Why is it so messy? Duke Yu frowned. He was very displeased. This is a secluded place for cultivation. How did it turn into a slaughterhouse? Then, he turned his head to look at Jun Shizhu. Why are you here? Someone from that family has come down, Jun Shizhu coldly snorted. Chu Yang hastily asked Shuo Duxing and the others while speaking, what's the matter? Baidu Search Network's high-quality update it's your two sworn brothers. Jun Shizhu replied. She coldly snorted and said, one is Luo Kadi, and the other is GMO. They are taking liberties with women. And they are taking liberties with me. This has never happened in the three heavens. Even Duke Yu's body swayed twice in an instant. As for Shuo Duxing and Dong Wushang, they were even more dizzy. They almost sat down on the snow-covered ground. They had been scared by this sentence. No wonder GMO had patted his buttocks and shouted for help after he had returned. Then, he had said that something bad had happened, and that Luo Kadi was going to be slaughtered. But he hadn't said anything. It's no wonder that they have taken liberties with women. They have become the overlords of the underworld of the three heavens. These two brothers are really, Shuo Duxing sighed. I understand. I wouldn't have said anything if it had been me. This isn't shameful anymore. Luo Kadi and GMO lowered their heads. It seemed as if they had committed a great crime of deceiving the monarch. Their faces had turned into persimmons at this moment. One could see that Jun Shizhu hadn't wrongly accused them just by looking at their appearance. Really? Duke Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and sighed. Heroes come from the youth since ancient times. I admire you. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not being sarcastic. I truly admire you. At least, you've done something that I wouldn't have dared to do. Luo Kadi and GMO's noses became crooked. Idols. Chu Yang grabbed their hands with tears in his eyes. You two have created an unprecedented precedent in the three heavens, big brother. Please don't say it. I feel like dying. Luo Kadi's face was bitter as he repeatedly pleaded. One said that he could compose a poem, and the other said that he could write a chapter. You guys are really treating me like a little girl to coax. Jun Shizhu rolled her eyes. Everyone felt as if they had been struck by lightning. One after another, they asked Second Young Master Luo and Second Young Master Ji what kind of poem they had written. The two of them directly stuck their heads into the crotch of their trousers, refusing to raise their heads no matter what. Go ahead and mock us all you want. We don't believe that you won't embarrass us in the future. Jun Shizhu restrained herself from laughing. She then read out the poem, Everyone Has a Big Belly. Du Xing and Dong Wushang were taking joy in other people's misfortune. In fact, they were laughing so hard that tears were almost flowing out of their eyes. Next, Duke Yu continued to bring Chu Yang to complete the bet. Jun Shizhu fished out a small booklet from her bosom and handed it over to Mo Qingwu. This was what she wrote during this period of time. It was also one of the reasons why she came out this time besides looking for Duke Yu. Then Jun Shizhu stood still. She stretched out her hand and pointed her finger at Luo Kadi. Then she pointed at GMO. Then she nodded again and exposed a meaningful smile. Then she rose up and disappeared in the snowflakes that filled the sky. Luo Kadi and GMO sat down on the snow-covered ground as soon as she left. They couldn't help but wipe their sweat. Then they kept muttering, hot, this weather is really hot. Everyone looked at the ice under their feet and the heavy snow in the sky. They were speechless. This is the White Crystal Mine. Duke Yu pointed at the sparkling white light in front of him and said, the two of them had already passed through a deep and long tunnel at this moment. They were 1,000 feet below the ground. White crystals were everywhere as far as the eye could see. They were piled up in large chunks. Some of them were still on the mountain walls and hadn't been extracted yet. The more they went, the more they got. The calamity sword in his dantian trembled excitedly and buzzed. Chu Yang was thoroughly stunned. He had thought that the white crystal mine that Duke Yu had mentioned wasn't very big. In fact, it was only on such a small scale. Who would have thought that he would see a super large mineral vein at this moment? Moreover, all the white crystals could be seen at a glance. In fact, it wouldn't take much effort to extract them all. If it was calculated according to the size of a palm, the white crystals here would be tens of thousands of pieces, hundreds of thousands of pieces, millions of pieces, or even tens of millions? Chu Yang sucked in a breath of cold air. Dukyu smiled. His smile was still as carefree as before. He said, "You can stay here. I understand? Yes, I'll go out first. Tell them that you'll be in seclusion here. Then we'll wait outside for you to come out." "Many thanks," Chu Yang said gratefully. Dukyu smiled faintly and said, "I'll also exchange pointers with them one by one. After all, I can't be a sparring partner for nothing." Good." Dukyu smiled and turned to leave. "Brother Yu," Chu Yang called out. "Is there anything else?" Dukyu turned to look at him. "It's just a small token of appreciation. Please accept it, Brother Yu." Chu Yang held a piece of mysterious jade ice crystal core and a piece of mysterious yang jade core in his hand. This was a world of difference compared to the two pieces that Dukyu had shamelessly taken away from him that day. "If you give me peaches and plums, I'll repay you with fine jade." Chu Yang was a person who never suffered losses. He clearly distinguished between gratitude and grudges. "As long as you treat me with sincerity, I'll treat you 100 times better. Even if I can't give you the same value, I'll do my best." Just like how he treated Xie Danqiong that day in the Xie clan. And like how he treated Dukyu today. In the Xie clan, it was because of benefits in the beginning. But it was no longer for benefits when Chu Yang gave Xie Danqiong the real jade flowers. Xie Danqiong knew this better than anyone else. It was a matter of friendship. And it was the same today. The reason why Chu Yang gave away the mysterious jade ice crystal core and the mysterious yang jade core was because of Dukyu's friendship. Perhaps Dukyu had some ulterior motives in the end. But his help to Chu Yang at this stage was incomparable. Dukyu's eyes moved. He looked at Chu Yang deeply. But he didn't reach out his hand. Instead, he asked, "Why are you giving them to me?" He would rather go back on his word that day to take those two pieces. But he took a step back today when these two pieces of jade core were 10,000 times better than the one in front of him. There's no reason. If people respect me, I'll respect them tenfold. Chu Yang said seriously, "Brother Yu, I only treated you as a mysterious expert when I made the bet with you and argued with you before. As for the bet and promise, that's for strangers." He looked at Dukyu seriously and said, "But I'm giving these two pieces of jade to you now, because of friends." Chu Yang smiled gently. "So, this has nothing to do with the future or the promise of friendship, or anything else. It's just a token of my sincerity." Dukyu didn't seem to hear what Chu Yang had said. He only frowned and looked deeply into Chu Yang's eyes. He said softly, Friend? Something seemed to flash in the depths of his eyes. Then he put the two pieces of jade away. Very cautiously, he placed them into his bosom. He smiled faintly and said, "Maybe you'll regret the word friend one day. If Brother Yu doesn't regret it, I won't regret it either." Chu Yang smiled and said, "I'm afraid that I'll regret it." Dukyu laughed. "Even if you regret it, that's your business." Chu Yang said quietly, "Even if I regret it, that's my business?" Dukyu murmured. He suddenly felt warm in his heart. "Even if you regret it, that's your business. What does it have to do with me? But I won't regret it. Even if we become enemies because of you in the future, I still won't regret what I've done today." These were the words that Chu Yang didn't finish speaking. Dukyu completely understood. Dukyu finally turned around and left without saying a word. His green robe fluttered and he disappeared in front of Chu Yang in the blink of an eye. Chu Yang watched him leave and a smile appeared on his face. Then he turned around and stretched out his right hand. The three pieces of the Calamity Sword suddenly appeared at his fingertips. In the next moment, the Calamity Sword pierced the white crystal wall in front of him. It was clean and tidy, without the slightest hesitation. Time was of the essence. Besides, Chu Yang couldn't wait any longer. The silver crystal in front of him dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a while, The calamity sword flew up with a clang and began to advance forward like a hot knife through butter. Wherever it passed, the white crystal dimmed and turned into powder. 3 days later, the entire white crystal mine completely dimmed. The space inside became even bigger, and there was dust everywhere. The 3 pieces of the calamity sword all emitted a bright light. A faintly discernible spiritual energy rippled at the tip of the sword and stopped in the air, motionless. Suddenly, a strong light burst out, and then it immediately returned to its original state. Not long after, another wave of strong ghosts appeared. This cycle repeated. In a short time, it had already flashed more than 10 times. Finally, the calamity sword returned to its original state, as if there were no changes at all. The sword spirit said thoughtfully, "Improve it in all aspects. With the sun and moon ointment, you don't have to hold anything back." Chu Yang's spirit was immediately lifted. First, he threw the sun and moon ointment out. With a swoosh, the calamity sword pierced the sun and moon ointment. In an instant, the sun and moon ointment was absorbed into powder. Then, Chu Yang took out the precious materials that he had originally collected one after another. In the end, he directly put the calamity sword into the calamity space and let it absorb it by itself. The sword spirit immediately became very nervous. 3 days later, the calamity sword finished absorbing the existing resources. Except for the dozens of pieces of materials that Chu Yang had left behind to forge weapons, and the mysterious jade ice crystal and mysterious yang jade that the sword spirit was desperately protecting, the calamity space was already empty. And the sword spirit had also ripened a petal of the heavenly orchid. His aura had suddenly weakened a lot. But a burst of black fog started to rise from his body after he took it. And this black fog started to condense inside the sword spirit's body. His entire body had become very condensed by the time this black fog had completely condensed inside his body. This visual effect was more than 10 times stronger than before he took it. "It's really worth it." The sword spirit sighed deeply. He looked at his arms and legs with satisfaction and proudly shook them a few times. "What do we do now?" the sword spirit asked. "Immediately heal Qing Wu's 3-yin meridian," Chu Yang said unquestionably. As he spoke, he hurriedly walked out. And then immediately let the calamity sword refine elixirs to increase the strength of my brothers. Chu Yang said without hesitation, "Their current strength is too weak." Chapter 5:11. Why? Chu Yang was stunned and stopped. "Because your path is already different." The sword spirit became more serious than ever and said, "If you just want a group of strong fighters, you can improve them quickly. But if you want everlasting brothers, it's best not to." "But is it a good thing to improve their strength?" Chu Yang asked in confusion. Baidu search network's high-quality updates the fastest. "In short, it's not good." The sword spirit replied, "My memory is sealed, so I can't say what's not good about it. But I can feel that it's best not to do it. The best way is to strengthen their foundation and improve their aptitude. Let them accumulate their strength step by step and reach the peak." "That's the right way." The sword spirit replied, "I'm risking my life by saying this, because I'll have to repeat the fate of the past 10,000 years. Chu Yang suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He looked up at the sword spirit. The sword spirit was tongue-tied and covered his mouth. Obviously, he knew that he had said something he shouldn't have. "Then I'll use the pills to strengthen their foundation." Chu Yang stared at the sword spirit for a long time before he said slowly. The sword spirit's face was full of joy and he nodded repeatedly. His warning this time could be said to be a huge risk. But this was the only hope he could feel. The hope of breaking free from the cycle of reincarnation. So the sword spirit didn't want to let it go. If Chu Yang really used pills to raise the strength of Gu Duxing and the others, it would be tantamount to letting the calamity sword unintentionally leave a mark in their hearts and divine senses. In that way, Chu Yang would walk the same path as the previous masters of the sword. Chu Yang's face was calm, but his heart was in turmoil. "I also want to repeat the fate of the past 10,000 years." The sword spirit's words made Chu Yang shudder. As soon as the calamity sword appeared, the world changed instantly. The masters of the heavens changed, and the great clans were annihilated and replaced by new great clans. Then, why was it a big clan and not the 5 big clans? And not the 10 big clans? Why was it a clan? Did this have anything to do with the sword? There was another point. Every time the sword appeared, it would hide in a different place for 10,000 years. In other words, it had been buried for 10,000 years. Then, how long did it take for the previous master of Calamity's sword to unify the first heaven? This period of time was definitely not very long, at most a few hundred years. However, the Calamity sword returned to the body and was buried for another 10,000 years. Then, where did the master of the Calamity sword go? As he thought of all these, Chu Yang felt a chill run down his spine, and a chill spread throughout his body. It was as if there was a huge net coming down on him from all directions. There was nowhere to run. It was as if the heavens had returned to fate, and the heavens had returned to order. The path of the Calamity Sword Master was like the path of life. By world-defying heavens, no one can stop the spear in front of you. Whether you move or not, you will grow old. Whether you move or not, you will walk the path of the Calamity Sword Master. You do things for yourself, for your own selfish interests. But all the things you do add up to unwittingly coincide with another path that God has already arranged for you. This was the will of heaven. When Chu Yang obtained the Calamity Sword, he encountered Emo Qingwu's death. He didn't want Emo Qingwu to die, so he could only reverse fate. To reverse fate, he had to go to Iron Cloud. When he went to Iron Cloud, he had to face Diwu Qingru. A war between the two countries, and tens of millions of lives would be lost. This was already in line with the path of the Calamity Sword Master. In order to save Emo Qingwu, he needed to get the heavy pill. He needed to improve the Calamity Sword step by step. He had already reached this point. The upper 3 heavens was still waiting for him. Because Chu Yang's background and his parents were there. In his previous life, he didn't care about anything. But in this life, how could he not care about anything? So Chu Yang definitely had to go to the upper 3 heavens. Even if he had to turn back into powder, he still had to go. But as long as he went, he would be getting closer and closer to the path of the Calamity Sword. In other words, the path that God had set for Chu Yang was the path of the Calamity Sword Master. It could be imagined that as life progressed step by step, what pushed Chu Yang forward was definitely not just a little bit. Thinking of all this, Chu Yang broke out in a cold sweat. He felt a chill run down his spine. Is it really irreversible? I thought that I had already reversed it, but it turns out that I had been following it for a long time. At this moment, a thought suddenly popped up in Chu Yang's mind. After saving Emo Qingwu, I'll live in seclusion with Emo Qingwu? And not care about worldly affairs? Is it inevitable? Chu Yang's heart was heavy as he walked back from the white crystal mine. When he saw Gu Duxing and the others, the heaviness on Chu Yang's face was still clearly visible. His thoughts still didn't stop. The sword spirit in his mind was also silent. He didn't dare to make a sound to disturb him. Boss. Luo Kadi wanted to cry but had no tears. Chu Yang was dumbfounded. These 4 brothers of his were no longer in human form. Even people with strong perseverance like Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang were already exhausted from Duke Yu's training. When they met again, Chu Yang almost couldn't recognize who was who. Duke Yu's sparring was indeed very good and powerful. It was a complete and utter abuse. However, under such torture, Luo Kadi and Ji Mo's cultivation improved very quickly. They were already at the point of breaking through. Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang had already broken through. Gu Duxing was now a 4th-grade sword king. Dong Wushang was now a 4th-grade saber king. The little girl Emo Qingwu was holding the booklet that Jun Shizhu had given her. She was carefully studying it. When she saw Chu Yang return, she put the booklet in her bosom and jumped over. These guys are very malleable. Duke Yu was full of praise. He had squeezed out all the potential of Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, and the others in his own unique way. The more he squeezed them out, the more amazed Duke Yu became. It was simply inconceivable that ordinary people could have such potential, Have you finished refining the pills? Chu Yang asked in his mind. Yes, a total of 10 spirit transformation pills. Sword Spirit replied, taking this pill won't have the special effect of increasing one's cultivation. But it can enhance the potential of the person who takes it. It can make their martial arts foundation more outstanding. Moreover, it can make their meridians more bearable. Moreover, it contains the power of enlightenment of the heavenly way. It can increase the possibility of making a breakthrough as long as they have the opportunity. Sword Spirit replied, this pill is the mildest among all the similar pills. Chu Yang nodded and said, that's good. Then he called Gu Duxing and the others to take 1 pill each. Then he introduced the effects of the pill to the 4 people in detail. Gu Duxing and the others were dumbstruck. There's such a miraculous medicine in the world. Chu Yang then said to Duke Yu, Brother Yu, I'll have to trouble you for a few days. Train them well to spread the efficacy of the pill. You should have more experience than us in this aspect. So, you should pay attention to the fact that the medicinal efficacy must spread to every meridian, every muscle, and even the brain. So, we need an expert like Brother Yu to personally check it. Duke Yu laughed out loud, this is no problem. I'll make sure that they don't waste even a little bit of it. I want to die. How many more days? Luo Kadi and GMO screamed at the same time. They looked at each other in dismay. They wanted to cry, but had no tears. They had been turned into mud by Duke Yu in the past few days. How many more days would it take? That spirit beast hasn't made any movements during this time, right? Chu Yang asked. Chu Yang was still somewhat concerned about this matter. No. Well, someone had encountered a wind fox a few nights ago. But that thing was too fast. So, it was as if it didn't appear. Later, a few corpses were found. The unstoppable spear of pride in the heavens died under the sharp claws of a fire lion. It seems that not only is there a spirit beast here, but there's more than one. Duke Yu's spirit was very excited as he said, as long as we can confirm that this thing really exists, I'll be relieved. There's no need to rush. Besides, how can a spirit beast be so easy to deal with? Good. If possible, we'll take action. Chu Yang nodded affirmatively and said, then, I'll go take care of something first. As he said this, he picked up Mo Qing Wu and went back in the direction of the white crystal or vein. To heal Mo Qing Wu, he needed an absolutely quiet place. Only a place like the white crystal or vein would be warm enough, and he wouldn't have to worry about being disturbed. Moreover, it was spacious enough. Seeing Chu Yang leave, Duke Yu clasped his hands behind his back and turned his head. He bared his teeth at the youngsters who had just taken the pill. He smiled maliciously, brothers, come. Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang sighed at the same time. Luo Kadi and GMO lay flat on the snowy ground. Brother Chu Yang, where are you taking me? Mo Qing Wu asked curiously. I'm taking you to a very fun place. Chu Yang smiled slightly. Really? Of course, really. What are we going to do there? To treat your illness. Mo Qing Wu cried out in surprise. Then, she suddenly thought of something and became shy. She squeezed her little head into Chu Yang's arms. What's wrong? Chu Yang was surprised. I'm shy. Mo Qing Wu whispered. She was so shy that she couldn't speak. What are you shy about? Chu Yang scratched his head in confusion. Why was this little lowly so shy? My wound is on my chest. Mo Qing Wu pouted and said, Brother Chu Yang, you're taking advantage of me. Chu Yang staggered as he was running. He lost his footing on the glacier and slid down. Then he fell on his back. His 2 buttocks were caught off guard, and broke into 8 pieces as a result. Chu Yang got up and looked at the little girl in his arms. He was speechless. How old is this little girl? She's already thinking of this. Brother Chu Yang, don't worry. Don't be surprised. Mo Qing Wu blushed. She moved closer to his ear and said, I don't mind. If it was someone else, I would rather die than let him see me. The little girl said resolutely and decisively. She then added, It's just that I haven't grown up yet. It's just starting to grow. Brother Chu Yang, please don't dislike it. Chu Yang's face darkened. He picked her up and ran away. Heavens, please strike me with lightning and kill me, this beast. Imo-Ching Wu shyly nestled in his arms and whispered, "It will grow up in the future." Chu Yang stumbled again. "Spare me. Ooh." Chapter 5:12. Not long after, the mentally exhausted Chu Yang finally arrived at the White Crystal Mine with Imo-Ching Wu in his arms. His body flashed, and he entered the mine through the secret passage that Duke Yu had dug. They went all the way to the underground. Baidu search network high quality update. What a spacious underground cave. Imo-Ching Wu opened her big eyes wide as she exclaimed in surprise. Chu Yang shook his hand, and 3 luminous pearls were embedded in the stone wall. Suddenly, the entire area was softly illuminated. Then, Chu Yang casually waved his hand, and a large flat stone that he had already prepared was cleaned. Then, he took out some bedding from the tribulation space and laid it on top of it. "Come, Ching Wu, take off your clothes and lie on top of it." Chu Yang waved his hand, and suddenly thought of something. He took out a few pieces of mysterious yang jade from the tribulation space, and spread them around. Suddenly, the entire space became warm and comfortable. "I really have to take off my clothes." Imo-Ching Wu's small face turned red. Her 2 small hands tightly grasped the front of her clothes, and her eyes moved around. "Brother Chu Yang, you are so naughty." Chu Yang sweated profusely. "I am naughty? Little girl, it will take a few years for me to be naughty, your current body. Even if I want to be naughty, it will be quite difficult. Hurry up." Chu Yang had no choice but to put on a serious face. "Humph." The little girl came over slowly. She looked at Chu Yang from the corner of her eyes as she walked. Then, her 2 small hands began to untie her belt. She took off her overcoat, and then the small leather jacket, and then the small leather waistcoat, and then the small cotton padded jacket, and then the small cotton waistcoat, and finally, the small belly band. There were more than 10 layers. Only a small red belly band was left on her upper body. It wrapped around her snow-white skin, and the little girl covered her chest with her hands. Chu Yang sighed. "This small chest is just beginning to pop out. It can't even be considered as the tip of a lotus flower. A slightly chubby boy is probably bigger than this little girl here, and she is still so nervous that she doesn't want to let me see it. Are you done?" Imo-Ching Wu asked timidly. "Take it off." Chu Yang said with black lines on his forehead. So shy." Imo-Ching Wu covered her face. Let me do it. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I'll do it myself." The little girl nimbly jumped up, kicked off her little leather boots, and jumped onto the bed. She even stretched out her petal-like little feet in front of Chu Yang, and said triumphantly, "Elder brother Chu Yang, smell it. Mine doesn't stink." Chu Yang couldn't help but look at his feet. In fact, he was also depressed. He already had an innate constitution, and all the impurities in his body had already been expelled. Why did he still have the problem of foot odor? This shouldn't be happening. When he came back to his senses, he saw that the little girl had already taken off her doo-doo. Her upper body was bare and she was lying on the specially made bed. Her 2 small hands were nervously covering her small breasts, which didn't have the slightest bit of size. Alas! Chu Yang sighed. He reached out and took her right hand away, then looked at the place where she had been injured. There was only a dark red mark left. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it. This was only possible because the little girl had been constantly exhausting her physical strength during this period of time. Otherwise, there would be no such thing. Feeling Chu Yang's warm hand touching her body, Imo-Ching Wu tightly closed her eyes. Her small body also became perfectly straight. He looked like he was overly nervous. Chu Yang was both angry and amused. He really didn't know what this little girl was nervous about. At his command, the calamity sword moved instantly. A stream of pure medicinal power was instantly injected into Imo-Ching Wu's body from his palm. The sword spirit in his mind rubbed his hands together. A stream of mysterious spiritual power poured out from Chu Yang's consciousness and merged with the medicinal power of the calamity sword. Chu Yang reached out his left hand and there was an amethyst box. With a push of his thumb, the lid of the box opened with a snap. A fragrance immediately wafted out. It was the heavy pill, ready at any time. The tip of the calamity sword let out a long cry. Suddenly, it escaped from Chu Yang's fingertips and turned into a stream of light, drilling into Emo Qingwu's meridians. Emo Qingwu only felt that her body was getting hotter and hotter. In the end, her chest was already scorching hot. A kind of heart-wrenching pain suddenly rose. Instantly, she frowned in pain and groaned painfully from her throat. This kind of feeling was even more painful than when he was struck by the sword. And this kind of pain was gradually getting worse. Chu Yang stared intently, only to see a pink scar slowly bulging on Mei Qingwu's chest. Gradually, her entire chest seemed to be filled with a transparent red light, and even Emo Qingwu's internal organs could be vaguely seen. It hurts. Big brother Chu Yang. Emo Qingwu frowned in pain. Her eyes glistened with tears. She pursed her lips and looked at Chu Yang pitifully. It's okay. Bear with it. Little Wu is the strongest. Bear with it and you'll be fine. You can practice martial arts in the future. Chu Yang comforted her gently. Emo Qingwu perked up. I want to practice martial arts. I want to protect big brother Chu Yang. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. She said it didn't hurt, but slowly she clenched her teeth and didn't make a sound. Sweat the size of soybeans kept coming out of her face and body. Chu Yang's heart ached as he watched, but there was nothing he could do. If you miss this opportunity, there won't be a second possibility. Even if you suffer the same injury again, after being healed by the calamity sword this time, there won't be any hope for you to form the heavenly Yin body again. That's why I asked you to think about it. Let's do it. Chu Yang made a prompt decision. Heavenly Yin body, innate spirit meridians. This was Emo Qingwu's great fortune. Since there was such an opportunity, how could Chu Yang miss it? The stronger Emo Qingwu was, the safer she would be. However, she will have to suffer more pain. The sword spirit said slowly. It's better to have a short pain than a long pain. Chu Yang's eyes shone with heartache, but he didn't hesitate. Let's start immediately. But the sword spirit agreed and immediately informed the calamity sword tip. The calamity sword tip suddenly flashed in Emo Qingwu's body and instantly turned into thousands of fragments, penetrating Emo Qingwu's entire body. Even the unique light of the calamity sword was flashing above Emo Qingwu's head. Emo Qingwu couldn't clench her teeth anymore. She groaned in pain and spat out a mouthful of blood. She looked at Chu Yang helplessly. Her originally bright eyes were already dead gray. Jiang, brother, it's okay. It'll be okay soon. Chu Yang held this small body in his arms with heartache. He pressed his face against her face and comforted her gently. Cough, cough. Emo Qingwu coughed lightly and fainted. Hurry! Chu Yang couldn't help but roar. On Emo Qingwu's chest, the wound of the 3 Yin meridians was already clearly visible. Chu Yang could even see with his naked eye how that sword had destroyed the innate meridians. The tiny meridians were quickly connected together under the star-like sword light. Like thousands of bent threads, they were easily cut by the calamity sword tip. Finally, that horrifying wound slowly disappeared. Emo Qingwu's entire body, from the top of her head to the soles of her feet, suddenly shone with the luster of starlight. At first glance, it seemed that all the starlight in the entire universe had been transferred to this little girl's body, which was as white as a lotus flower. This is the moment. Take the heavy pill. Hurry! The sword spirit shouted in his mind. Chapter 5:13. Chu Yang didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly brought the purple crystal bottle close to Emo Qingwu's mouth. But Emo Qingwu had already fainted. She clenched her teeth tightly. The heavy pill couldn't enter. Baidu search network's high-quality updates the fastest ***. Chu Yang frowned. Without any hesitation, he circulated his energy. His energy formed a vacuum energy shield around his mouth. Then he put the heavy pill into his mouth. He leaned forward and used the tip of his tongue to gently pull back Emo Qingwu's teeth. The tip of his tongue moved back and forth agilely on Imo Qingwu's soft lips. Then he slowly opened them. Imo Qingwu originally closed her mouth tightly and clenched her teeth. But she felt that there seemed to be something moving gently on her mouth. There was a comfortable itch. She couldn't help but gently open her mouth. Chu Yang took the opportunity to fiercely push the tip of his tongue and finally pushed the heavy pill into her mouth. He finally heaved a sigh of relief. But at this moment, an accident happened. Although Imo Qingwu was unconscious, she instinctively realized that something had entered her mouth. She subconsciously closed her teeth. Ouch! Chu Yang cried out miserably. His voice was dull and unclear. His tongue was bitten by Imo Qingwu's sharp teeth. Minister Chu was in trouble. He was in front of the little girl. His tongue was stretched out and was bitten. His whole body was sweating. He wanted to pull it out bit by bit. Oh my God, I'm bleeding. I can't circulate any energy in this place, but Imo Qingwu was biting very tightly. The little girl closed her mouth and clenched her teeth. She was very determined. Minister Chu sighed repeatedly in his heart. He could only slowly try to pull it out, but it didn't work. So, he endured the pain and moved the tip of his tongue back and forth in the little girl's mouth. Imo Qingwu indeed felt that her mouth was unbearably itchy. She unconsciously loosened her mouth. Ouch! Chu Yang finally rescued his tongue. He only felt pain. He stuck his tongue out and touched it with his hand. Blood. What's wrong with intercepting a drink from the proud melon hand cold Tinglu? This little girl is quite strong. Minister Chu stuck his tongue out and looked back with a bitter face. The sword spirit clearly knew that he shouldn't laugh at this critical juncture. However, he still couldn't help but convulse with laughter. The heavy pill entered her mouth and immediately transformed into countless pure spiritual powers, which rushed towards Imo Qingwu's body in all directions. Then, the specks of starlight on Imo Qingwu's body suddenly flourished. The range of the starlight's illumination seemed to have shrunk the entire universe, and all of it was concentrated on Imo Qingwu. When a person returns to his body, he becomes a universe of his own. Can you tell? The sword spirit said lightly. This sentence is absolutely not said casually. Chu Yang looked at the starlight on Imo Qingwu's body and imagined the starry sky in his memory. It's true that the reincarnation of the human body is a universe of its own, but without the power of the heavenly Tao, no one can activate its true use. The sword spirit replied, therefore, since ancient times, countless powerful people and wise people have been pursuing the heavenly Tao. A lot of people are pursuing the heavenly Echo Tao, but they don't know what it is for. There are even more people who think that the heavenly Echo Tao is just a form of power. The sword spirit said disdainfully, but the real pursuit of the heavenly Echo Tao is just to activate the universe of the heavenly Echo Tao. Let this person be self-sufficient, and from then on, transcend the heavenly Echo Tao and transcend the cycle of reincarnation. This is the real Nirvana realm. What's after the Nirvana realm? Chu Yang said deeply, who can guarantee that this so-called Nirvana realm is not another beginning? Or, it's just a beginning? The sword spirit was startled. He said, this makes sense. After a moment of silence, he pondered over Chu Yang's words. Suddenly, he said loudly, this sentence makes a lot of sense. Then, he continued to ponder. As the heavy pill entered her body, Imo Qingwu only felt that her whole body was light and floating. The originally indescribable pain seemed to have disappeared. She woke up with a moan. She only felt that her body was incomparably comfortable. The wound on her chest, which was originally hurting faintly, was now very comfortable. There was no pain at all. Her whole body was so light that it was as if she was about to fly. She was overjoyed. She turned over and was about to sit up. Chu Yang gently held her down and said vaguely, don't stare, Brother Chu Yang, replied a brother. The little girl stared with her big round eyes. What are you talking about? What's wrong with your tongue turning back? Both move. The sea is digging again. Don't move, it's not over yet. Chu Yang turned his head with his tongue wide open. He hissed and sucked in cold air. He used a little strength to tell the little girl, don't move. Oh. The little girl blinked and lay back down obediently. She was full of concern. Brother Chu Yang, replied a brother, your tongue turning back? Chu Yang wanted to cry but had no tears. My tongue turning back? Didn't you bite my tongue when it turned back? Do you think it's easy for me? I almost broke off and became a mute. The timid girl immediately changed her line of sight. But why are there so many stars on my body? So beautiful. So beautiful. Finally, the starlight on Emo Qingwu's body slowly receded. Her skin gradually returned to its original soft and tender state. The whiteness returned to its redness. It was extremely delicate and tender. Well, you can let go now. The sword spirit reminded, the little girl needs to eliminate some things now. What things? Chu Yang was speaking in his mind. So, it naturally had nothing to do with the tongue turning back. He hadn't finished speaking when he saw the little girl's face suddenly turn red. Her eyebrows wrinkled. Her two legs were also forcefully pressed together. She looked at him with some shame and indignation in her eyes. Her voice seemed to have been squeezed out from her throat. I want. Chu Yang was startled. He quickly let go. The little girl's movements were extremely fast. She jumped up from the bed like an arrow and rushed out naked. Chu Yang touched his nose. Then he heard a voice from afar. Cough cough. A long time passed. The little girl's low and delicate voice was heard. Brother Chu Yang, reply to brother, what's the matter? I didn't bring the... Emo Qingwu was extremely embarrassed. I didn't bring any cleaning products to the toilet. But there's no other way. That feeling is really too urgent. Chu Yang laughed out loud. Baidu world-defying heavens bar provided by unstoppable spear. The little girl suddenly became embarrassed. Quickly give me some. Boo-hoo. Chu Yang hurriedly sent it over. After a long time, the little girl rushed over like a gust of wind. Chu Yang only saw her fair and tender body turn around in a flash. The little girl had already grabbed her clothes and desperately put them on one by one. Her pretty face turned red. Chu Yang laughed evilly. Let you wear it? You might as well not wear it. Sure enough, not long after, Emo Qingwu's stomach growled again. Her expression changed. In an instant, she ran out like a gust of wind again. After running 5 times in a row, she leaned into Chu Yang's arms, exhausted. Her face was pale. She said weakly, Brother Chu Yang, reply to brother. This diarrhea is really bad. Is this diarrhea? You're cleansing your meridians and marrow. Chu Yang sighed. Sigh. Emo Qingwu sighed. She was very depressed. What's wrong? Chu Yang asked. During this period he had already applied medicine on the wound on the back of his tongue. It felt much cooler. He could also speak in a way that others could understand. I kept laughing at Brother Chu Yang for having smelly feet. But I've made Brother Chu Yang smelly to death. Emo Qingwu pouted and said very shamelessly. Haha. Chu Yang couldn't help but kiss the little girl back and rub her hair. Finally, Emo Qingwu's injury was healed. Chu Yang was in a very good mood now. But the little girl kept pouting. Even when she heard that her injury was healed, she didn't show much joy. This made Chu Yang very puzzled. Qingwu, what's wrong with you? Woo-woo. The moment he asked that question, the little girl threw herself into his arms and started crying. Chu Yang was shocked. Homesick? No. Emo Qingwu cried for a while. Then she said, Boo. Mother said that a girl's body should be as pure as ice and as pure as jade. She shouldn't let any man see it, but you, Brother Chu Yang, you saw everything. Boo-hoo. Chu Yang was petrified. What should I do? Boo-hoo. The little girl was very sad. She sobbed and said, Brother Chu Yang, you'll take responsibility, right? Chu Yang's eyebrows jumped twice. It seemed as if he had just woken up from a dream. I'll take responsibility. I'll take responsibility. He wiped his cold sweat. This Mo clan's upbringing is really valiant. Such a little girl has already started to force others to take responsibility for her. The little girl continued to sob. She proudly raised her eyebrows in a place where Chu Yang couldn't see. She touched the small booklet that Jun Shiju had given her in her pocket. It didn't only contain Jun Shiju's Jianghu experience as the overlord of the underworld. It also contained many body techniques, sword techniques, and some reflections. Of course, the thing that attracted the little girl the most wasn't this aspect. Instead, it was Jun Lulu's introductory education. Jun Lulu liked this little girl very much. She also thought that Emo Qingwu had run away from home at such a young age. She would inevitably suffer if no one taught her some things about being a girl. Therefore, this zither master, who had a maternal instinct, wrote several pages in great detail. It was densely packed, and taught Emo Qingwu the ways of being a girl. In particular, she wrote the most about being on guard against men. And so on and so forth. However, this zither master had never dreamt that this how to guard against men that she had painstakingly written would become Emo Qingwu's guide to bathing in the sun, in particular, don't stay away, refuse but still welcome, keep your distance, and so on. Emo Qingwu had done the opposite with Chu Yang. Humph, brother Chu Yang is mine anyway. The little girl proudly thought in her heart. Chu Yang began to test the little girl in the next few days. Then he explained some things to her. He also checked the condition of her body while he was at it. Moreover, the meridian and marrow cleansing was still going on. 8 days had passed by the time the two of them finally went out. Almost all the people of the aristocratic clans had rushed to the northern wilderness. And a low-level green rainbow blood snake had been chased a few days ago. It was said that it had been seriously injured. Duke Yu had already brought Gu Du Xing and the others to chase after it. Only a king-level expert of the Gu clan was left behind to wait for Chu Yang and inform him of the news. Chu Yang heard that there was no time to lose. He immediately pulled Emo Qingwu in the direction that the king-level expert had pointed out. 2 figures came back. One had a tall and handsome figure, and the other had a petite and exquisite figure. They were like 2 cool breezes that blew across the ice field. In the sky above the two of them, there was a figure coming from afar. This person was very impressive. In the sky full of snow, it was as if he didn't affect a single snowflake at all. He floated in the air and floated over. His speed was extremely fast. He saw Chu Yang on the snow-covered ground at a glance. This person's gaze froze. He smiled and said to himself, such a young age, but such a quick and nimble agility. But he didn't take it seriously. He swept over the two of them. Chu Yang didn't feel anything. But this person suddenly exclaimed after he flew over. He muttered, something is wrong with that little girl. He turned around and turned around again. Chapter 5:14. Chu Yang and Emo Qingwu moved forward as light as a feather. Emo Qingwu's injuries were healed. Both of them were in the happiest moment. Both of them felt as light as a feather along the way. Especially Emo Qingwu. After walking for a while and activating her blood meridians, she felt as light as a swallow. It seemed that her strength was increasing with every passing moment. Her body became more and more flexible. Her spiritual power was increasing constantly. Her whole body felt more and more comfortable. After walking at a high speed for a while, her whole body began to heat up. Steam came out of her body. Chu Yang wanted her to adapt to her body in the shortest time possible. So, he sped up and let her catch up on her own. Emo Qingwu's competitive spirit was aroused. She chuckled as she flew up and passed by. Above the two of them, the mysterious expert's eyes became more and more satisfied. He muttered to himself, the heat on the top of your head has a yin color. You actually have the 3 yin meridians. This kind of constitution is rare. Emo Qingwu chased after him. Her face was full of joy. After running for 50 miles, she actually caught up with him. Her face was full of pride. But at this moment, she suddenly staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. This mouthful of blood was solid. It was purple-black and solidified. It fell on the snow, but didn't splash. Instead, it condensed together like a mass of paste. Chu Yang was shocked. In his mind, the sword spirit let out a long sigh of relief. He said, this is great. This heavenly yin body and innate spirit meridians are finally connected with this mouthful of blood. Chu Yang replied with an oh, and opened his eyes to look. He saw Emo Qingwu looking at the mouthful of blood in panic. She was a little panic-stricken. But her face was rosy and there was nothing unusual. Then she walked 2 steps. She seemed to be lighter than before. Emo Qingwu was surprised. How could there be no hindrance after vomiting blood? She tried to jump and run for a distance. Then she looked up in confusion. "Brother Chu Yang, what's going on? Why don't I feel uncomfortable after vomiting blood?" Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, "There's a problem with your constitution. After vomiting this mouthful of blood, you don't feel uncomfortable anymore." "I feel the same." Emo Qingwu smiled and tilted her head. She blinked and said happily, "Brother Chu Yang, I feel very strange." "Strange?" The little lowly happily somersaulted on the ground and said, "Elder brother Chu Yang, I suddenly feel that this world is very intimate and warm. I feel as if you are hugging me while walking in this world." Chu Yang was also puzzled. "There's such a feeling?" The little lowly happily spread out her hands and spun in a circle, saying, "I can feel the spiritual energy between heaven and earth automatically flowing into my body. Hee, this feeling is really good." Then she extended her fair and tender little hands as if she was presenting a treasure. Her pretty eyes glanced at Chu Yang. "Elder brother Chu Yang, quickly come and see." Chu Yang moved closer and couldn't help but widen his eyes. As soon as Emo Qingwu started to circulate her martial arts, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth seemed to have received an order, and rushed to gather towards Emo Qingwu's fair and tender little hands. In an instant, 2 pillars of spiritual energy were formed above her 2 fair and tender little hands, and almost became her second nature. Moreover, this pillar of spiritual energy was drilling into Emo Qingwu's meridians at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Ha! What's going on?" Chu Yang wasn't laughing. Instead, it was an unconscious sound that came out of his throat. "I don't know either." Emo Qingwu happily waved her hand, and the spirit energy pillar dispersed with a bang. Then she beckoned with her hand, and the dispersed spirit energy above her palms suddenly gathered together again. Then it turned into a hazy lotus flower. "Oh!" The little lowly danced with joy. "I know how to do tricks." Chu Yang was dumbfounded. The old man in the sky almost fell down with a somersault. The old man's eyes widened as he watched the spirit energy lotus flower, little bird pillar, and other transformations taking place in the little girl's palm. Slowly, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His breathing also became hurried, and his eyes immediately turned red. "What did I see? What did I see?" The old man's hands trembled, and his face looked like he was about to cry. "What exactly did I see? In this world, there is actually such a constitution." By the time the old man came back to his senses, the big and small below had already become 2 small dots in the snow and walked far away. The old man stopped in midair. He stood there in a daze for a long time, and suddenly he opened his mouth and sucked in a breath of cold air with a hiss. All the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from all directions seemed to be sucked in by his mouth. Suddenly, a spiritual energy storm was formed. In the distance, Chu Yang and Emo Qingwu suddenly felt a little suffocated, and for a moment, they actually had difficulty breathing. It was as if the spiritual energy in this area had suddenly disappeared. Both of them were greatly surprised, and endured this uncomfortable feeling until they ran for a while more before they felt that their breathing was smooth. What happened just now? Chu Yang was puzzled. He looked back, and all he could see was the boundless world, and nothing could be seen. It was really strange just now. Emo Qingwu also asked. The 2 of them looked at each other and then smiled. They didn't even know. Emo Qingwu jumped and hugged Chu Yang's neck. "Big brother Chu Yang, I'm tired. Carry me and run." "Okay." Chu Yang laughed and picked up this weak and boneless body, and flew all the way. Both of them didn't know that all this was caused by someone who couldn't control his emotions and took a deep breath. This old man's unintentional breath actually sucked up all the spiritual energy within a radius of thousands of feet. It turned this vast area into a vacuum. What kind of cultivation was this? But this old man with such a terrifying cultivation was already scared out of his wits by what he saw. Even after a long time, he was still muttering to himself, "My God! My earth! My God! What did I see? Heavenly body! Innate spirit meridians! But my eyes are blurry." He was stunned for a long time before he came back to his senses. "I'll catch up and take a look again." He did as he said, and with a kick of his feet in the air, he suddenly disappeared. Behind him, there was actually a long vacuum tunnel. The sound of a fierce fight was faintly heard from the front of the snowstorm. A clear whistling sound was heard, and it turned into a thunderclap in this snowstorm. It was Duke Yu's voice. Then, a long whistle was heard. It was full of energy, and wasn't inferior to Duke Yu's. But the voice was clear and gentle. It was a woman's voice. It was Jun Shiju. Then, a loud shout was heard. It shook the area within a radius of 100 miles. Chu Yang took a deep breath. So, this big sister of the three heavens underworld is so awesome. It seems that she isn't inferior to Duke Yu. He walked closer, and saw that many people had formed a big circle. Almost all of these people were king-level experts. Gu Du Xing and the others were also here. In addition, the people of several big clans were also here. Everyone was nervously looking at the scene. The people of the Meng clan were in a remote corner. The people of the Meng clan couldn't take advantage of Duke Yu after Chu Yang had sent a message to him. They could only fight recklessly in the open. However, their strength wasn't enough to fight recklessly. Therefore, they could only stay on one side and wait to get a share of the leftovers. Moreover, their original purpose was only to obtain a few drops of the spirit beast's blood. 3 figures were entangled in a whirlwind in the field. One of them was graceful and elegant. But her attacks were ruthless. Her attacks were as heavy as a mountain. Her black clothes were fluttering, and her long hair was fluttering. She was Jun Shiju. The other person's black clothes were fluttering in the wind. He seemed to be handling a butcher's cleaver with ease even though he was in such a fierce battle. In fact, it seemed as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Every move of his didn't carry the slightest bit of anger. It was Duke Yu. It turned out that the 2 leaders of the Dark Bamboo were attacking the spirit beast. No wonder the others didn't dare to intervene. Who in the 3 heavens would dare to snatch something that the Dark Bamboo wanted? So many king-level experts of the aristocratic clans had gathered here in the 3 heavens. And they only wanted the blood of the spirit beast that would drip from the body of Jun Shiju and Duke Yu. As for the core of the spirit beast, they didn't even dare to think about it. The target of Jun Shiju and Duke Yu's attack was a blood-red viper. This snake should be the green rainbow blood snake. Chu Yang muttered. Mo Qingwu looked at the field with her black eyes. She stuck out her tongue and said, "This snake is very ugly." This viper was only about 10 feet long. Its entire body was covered with blood-red scales. It had 3 heads and looked ferocious and dreadful. It had 2 strange claws under its lower abdomen. And its tail was a powerful weapon. It almost never landed on the ground. It was fighting in the air. Its eyes were full of impatience and malevolence. It was obvious that this snake was very helpless and angry at the fact that it had to face such an attack. One of the heads of this viper was constantly spurting out frost energy from its mouth. It was making a rustling sound. Even the air would briefly freeze wherever the frost energy passed. Then, it would shatter with a bang. The other head was constantly spewing out raging flames. Wherever the flames reached, the air would tremble and burn. The third head was stretching and shrinking. Every time it stretched and shrank, its neck would stretch for more than 100 feet in the blink of an eye. Its eerie white teeth were exposed, and a fishy smell filled the air. It would immediately retract if its attack didn't work. It would move like thunder and as fast as lightning. Its flexible tail was constantly swinging. It was controlling its body's balance. It would occasionally attack, but it would also retract its attack. However, its might was shocking. Chu Yang saw this, and realized that he would have had no other choice but to meet it head-on if he had been within its attack range. He couldn't have evaded it. Green fog was unceasingly emitting from the body of this blood snake along with the battle. The snowflakes in the air had also been dyed green along with the rise of this green fog. The ground where the battle had taken place had turned into a gloomy green color. Many places had already corroded and were riddled with holes. It was obvious that this fog was highly toxic. Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu could only fight in the air. They didn't dare to land on the ground because of this. Chu Yang looked at this green poisonous gas and thought, no wonder this guy is called the green rainbow blood snake. Its mouth and body are blood red, but it can spurt out green rainbow poisonous fog. Chapter 5:15. The green fog gradually filled the air, and the people outside the encirclement also started to slowly retreat. They kept a distance of several hundred feet from that green fog. The subordinates of Dark Bamboo were clearly ahead of everyone in the three directions. Their swords and hands were flashing. They were glaring like tigers watching their prey. They were ready to attack at any time. Chu Yang watched with rapt attention. He was secretly startled. A spirit beast is worthy of being called a spirit beast. It can contend against the joint attack of Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu. It has fallen into a disadvantageous position. It can't rush out no matter how hard it tries. However, it isn't injured. The terror of a spirit beast can be seen from this. Suddenly, a strange and hoarse hissing sound was heard while Chu Yang was pondering. He hastily looked up and saw that the viper had suddenly soared into the sky with a hissing sound. Then, a red shadow soared into the sky. Everyone who heard the viper's hissing sound couldn't help but feel a burst of dizziness in their heads. And they started to hallucinate. Jun Shizhu and Elder Yu whistled and launched a pincer attack from both sides. 3 shadows soared into the sky at the same time. Their speed was so fast that they had left behind countless afterimages. This had created a kind of extreme visual illusion. The people who didn't have time to raise their heads could clearly see that there were still 3 shadows fighting. The people who had just raised their heads could see that there were 3 shadows fighting in the sky. And the people who had raised their heads could also see that there were 3 shadows fighting in the sky. The green rainbow blood snake wanted to escape. This was something that everyone on the scene could see. Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu also understood this. Therefore, they had simultaneously intensified their attacks. They would have killed the green rainbow blood snake if they hadn't wanted to capture it alive. However, both of them had already realized that it was impossible to capture this spirit beast alive. Duke Yu let out a long and loud shout, "I'll smash you down. You quickly go and take a breath." His voice hadn't faded when a green shadow flashed, and the sky was suddenly filled with green-robed silhouettes. Jun Shizhu suddenly turned into a black line and rushed outside. She went 1,000 feet away in a flash. Then she finally opened her mouth and took a breath of the spiritual energy of the world. Her tiptoes touched the ground, and her body transformed into a rainbow as she rushed back. It turned out that these 2 experts had been holding their breaths while fighting the green rainbow blood snake. It seems that these 2 people don't dare to breathe the poisonous gas of the green rainbow blood snake even with their cultivation. Chu Yang thought to himself. Duke Yu suddenly exhaled and roared when Jun Shizhu flew out, "Get down!" The green figure suddenly flew up and arrived above the green rainbow blood snake. Then he ruthlessly struck the green rainbow blood snake's head with his palm. Then he followed up with more than 10 consecutive palm strikes and smashed the green rainbow blood snake's 3 heads. The green light blood snake let out a blood-curdling screech as its body fell to the ground. In the process of falling, Duke Yu followed closely from high up in the sky. His 2 legs flipped as he continuously kicked the green light blood snake's body hundreds of times. With a pew sound, the 3 heads of the green light blood snake simultaneously spat out blood arrows. 3 streaks of blood shot out in 3 different directions and landed on the snowy ground. A sea of crimson red. The eyes of the experts from the aristocratic families turned green as they stared at the 3 pools of blood. Yes, that's what we need. Even if we can only get half of it, it can still be considered as a rewarding journey. The green rainbow blood snake fiercely fell on the snowy ground with a bang sound. The ice fragments swirled in the air. The blood that had just landed on the ground also flew up. Suddenly, The shadows of people rushed towards the 3 pools of blood in the air. They were mixed with angry curses. "It's mine! Don't snatch it! Get lost! Why you snatching it? Kill this bastard!" I got a little, haha. A king-level expert of the Meng clan had just gotten his hands on it when he was dismembered by the world-defying stage heavens. Everyone's eyes turned red in front of such a strong temptation. "You bunch of bastards!" Jun Shizhu angrily shouted, "Kill them all!" These people had come to snatch the blood of spirit beasts. The scene was chaotic, and the green rainbow blood snake had a chance to escape. It let out a strange cry, and its 3 heads attacked at the same time. It used its tail to block Duke Yu's heavy blow. Then, it jumped out like lightning. Duke Yu roared angrily and flew over. The green rainbow blood snake was fleeing in the direction of Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang. It seemed that this beast also knew how to bully the weak and fear the strong. The number of people in this direction was the smallest. Moreover, it didn't move. It had its back towards Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu. It was rushing towards them with a reckless speed and posture. Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang shouted loudly. 1 saber and 1 sword attacked at the same time. They met the attack head-on. The saber light was as vast as the heavenly river. The sword light was like a meteor in the sky. One was as sharp as a sword that could pierce the blue sky. The other was as vigorous and overbearing as if it could chop off the earth under its feet. The green rainbow blood snake exposed a startled look in its eyes. Fuck. So, this old man was hiding in the direction where the attack was the strongest. The green rainbow blood snake would have certainly said these words in grief if it could speak. Those people who were flying around to snatch things were far inferior to these 2 men. Fuck. The attacks of the saber and sword kings fiercely collided with the body of the green rainbow blood snake. The bang sound was heard. Gu Du Xing and Dong Wushang spat out blood and flew backwards. However, the irresistible speed of the green rainbow blood snake suddenly came to a halt. It stopped in midair. This little bit of time was enough to announce the death sentence of this green rainbow blood snake. Duke Yu let out a long and loud shout as he rushed over. His foot stretched out at lightning speed and stomped on the tail of the green rainbow blood snake. His saber light flashed at the same time, and a series of bang 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 sounds were heard. Duke Yu's saber was unceasingly chopping at the necks of the 3 heads of the green rainbow blood snake. That layer of scales was extremely hard. Duke Yu's saber couldn't cut it off. So, he simply continued to attack. The green rainbow blood snake screamed miserably. It struggled, and blood flew out little by little. Jun Shizhu's shadow flew over. Her saber-like palm chopped at the body of the green rainbow blood snake. Then, she clenched her fist and fiercely pounded it. 3 bang-bang sounds were heard as the 3 heads of the green rainbow blood snake were smashed into the ground. She shouted loudly, "Little you idiot! You should have smashed its heads into the ground first. Why are you chopping its necks? Its neck is the hardest part of its body. There's almost no weapon in the world that can break its defense. You're simply wasting your strength." She punched the 3 heads of the green rainbow blood snake again as she spoke, and smashed them back into the ground. Duke Yu smiled in ridicule. "Motherfucker. I'm a dignified Duke Yu, but I've been called an idiot. And I don't dare to talk back? This is my aunt. I can't afford to offend her." Chu Yang was dumbstruck as he looked at this scene. His eyebrows were twitching. This woman is really violent. Then, Duke Yu and Jun Shizhu started to hit the snake with bang 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 sounds. The 2 leaders of the dark bamboo hammered the green rainbow blood snake as if they were hammering a sack. They didn't know how many times they had hammered it. The green rainbow blood snake was still struggling and twisting in the beginning. But its head was once again smashed down like a thunderbolt as soon as it lifted up from the ground. This continued for 7 or 8 times. And the green rainbow blood snake gradually stopped moving. "It's almost done." Jun Shizhu gasped for breath. Then she straightened her body and grabbed the tail of the green rainbow blood snake. She then dragged the snake out of the ground. Its entire body had turned soft and vomited. Its joints had been dislocated from the beating. In fact, it couldn't be more dead. Jun Shiju looked at the dead green rainbow blood snake with some suspicion. She then wrinkled her brows. How did it die so easily? Duke Yu came over and stroked his chin. He was also puzzled after pondering for a long time. Something's wrong. How did it get killed so easily? Moreover, it had a weak appearance since the beginning of the fight. Chu Yang secretly smacked his lips as he walked over. Such a powerful spirit beast, but it had a weak appearance. Jun Shiju wrinkled her brows. She turned her palm, and a small and exquisite dagger appeared in her hand. It flashed with a cold light, and slashed down with a schwa sound. The snake's skin was once extremely hard. Jun Shiju's complexion became even more unsightly. She cut open the bone with the dagger. Then she dipped her finger into the blood, and put it into her mouth. She vomited twice. Then she suddenly became furious. Bastard! Who took away half of this snake's blood essence? Duke Yu was startled. What? He also dipped his finger into the blood and tasted it. Then, a strange look appeared on his face. The blood essence has been taken away? Who has such great ability? They caught it alive, and took its blood essence. Moreover, they didn't even leave a single scar on its body. It's still alive and kicking after the blood essence has been taken away. This matter is extremely strange. Half of the blood essence of a lively spirit beast has been taken away. What kind of heaven-defying and earth-penetrating divine ability could accomplish this? Jun Shiju's face was already filled with murderous aura. Damn it! This overlord of the dark bamboo moved like lightning. She broke the 3 heads of the green rainbow blood snake with 3 pop sounds. Then she took out 3 inner cores, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 green. She then kicked the corpse of the green rainbow blood snake and sent it flying. This kick was very fierce. It was sent flying for more than 1,000 feet. Then it exploded in the air, violent, valiant, powerful, overbearing, awesome. Chu Yang and the few brothers who had gathered around suddenly became silent out of fear. Even Duke Yu was dumbstruck. His eyebrows were twitching crazily, and the muscles on his face were constantly twitching. He turned his head away with a look of lingering fear on his face after a long time. Fortunately, the wife I've found is her younger sister, and not her. This is really scary. Oh God, you're a good person. These 3 inner cores are far from meeting my requirements. Jun Shiju sighed and said, the blood essence has been taken away. So, how can I? Suddenly, he turned around and shouted sternly, kill those bastards who only know how to take advantage of others and spoil the situation. Bastards! You dare to come and snatch the things that I, Jun Shiju, want? You've got dog guts. The more she spoke, the angrier she became. She angrily said, kill them all. Kill them all. You want the blood of spirit beasts. I'll let you drink your own blood. A person who could catch a spirit beast with his bare hands and extract its blood essence without injuring it in the slightest, was definitely a legendary existence. Jun Shiju knew that she couldn't afford to provoke such a person. She had nowhere to vent her anger. So, she decided to vent it on these people. The subordinates of the dark bamboo rushed forward with a murderous look on their faces. A group of king-level experts wailed like ghosts and fled in all directions. Duke Yu angrily shouted, especially these people of the Meng clan. Kill them all. They were the first ones to attack. Do you think I didn't see it? The people of the Meng clan were suddenly in a tragic situation. They were so scared that they almost lost control of their bowels. They felt wronged, grieved, and indignant. So many people attacked together. Why did you only see us? I'm going to drink. Today's guests have arrived. I can't catch up with them. So, I'm going to drown my sorrows in alcohol. Chapter 5:16. The others relaxed as soon as they heard this. They knew that Duke Yu wanted to mess with the Meng clan. So, they ran away without looking back. Only the people of the Meng clan were surrounded. These 8 people were dumbfounded. God knows how our Meng clan offended Duke Yu? Fuck, we are done for. Not only did we fail to achieve our objective, but we will also lose our lives here. However, they didn't know that they had such bad luck because they hadn't offended Dukyu. Instead, they had offended King of Hell Chu. The crisis of the Meng clan had arisen from Meng Luo's desire to lay his hands on Mo Qingwu. They would have rushed home and crippled Meng Luo's evil technique if they knew about this. But they had no chance. Master, you can't do this. The leader of the Meng clan's elders shouted in a sobbing tone. When did our Meng clan offend a friend of the dark bamboo? We have always been. His voice hadn't faded when Dukyu's face turned as cold as frost. He waved his hand. Kill them. Hundreds of dark bamboo experts roared and pounced forward. Suddenly, screams were heard. Let's stake it all. That Meng clan's elder roared in despair. He knew that he had no more luck. However, his words didn't get any response. We are facing hundreds of experts of the dark bamboo. Moreover, there are hundreds of king-level experts among them. Stake it all? Stake it all with what? Jun Shiju tilted her head slightly. She smiled and said, Little you seem to hate the Meng clan to the core? Dukyu faintly smiled. I don't care. Everyone in the world is like a dog or a pig in my eyes. However, the King of Hell wants them dead. Jun Shiju said, Since the King of Hell wants them dead, then we can't let them live. Dukyu smiled. Chu Yang came over with Gu Duxing and the others at this moment. Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang had been severely shaken a moment ago. But they had already returned to normal. We need to discuss this matter at length. Dukyu tightly knitted his brows and said, Chu Yang, I need your help. What help? Chu Yang asked. I believe that you've seen that our purpose is the blood essence of spirit beasts. This is very useful to me and Bamboo. Dukyu muttered to himself for a while. Then he said, But something unexpected has happened in the current situation. The blood essence of the spirit beast was taken away by someone. We definitely can't defeat this person. Dukyu heaved a sigh of relief as a gloomy and sullen look flashed across his eyes. If his cultivation hadn't been crippled once, he would have been on par with the person who extracted the blood of a spirit beast. But now, he was far inferior. How could he not be sullen? I can tell you this. Dukyu weighed his words and said, I am the world-defying stage. I need a complete inner core of a spirit beast to heal my injuries. I had forcefully increased my strength since I was injured the last time. So, I ended up with a chronic illness. My strength drops to emperor level for a period of time every year. But my strength recovers after this period of time. In this situation, we need the inner core of a spirit beast to make up for it. Bamboo needs the blood essence of spirit beasts to increase its cultivation and break through its current bottleneck. Dukyu said in a heavy voice, Therefore, our dark bamboo has come to the northern wilderness in such a big way. With our strength, we wouldn't have been able to escape as long as a spirit beast appeared. But there's obviously a change now. Someone is extracting the blood essence of a spirit beast. We can't use the blood essence that he has extracted. For example, this green rainbow blood snake. Chu Yang nodded. He finally understood the reason, so that's how it is. So we need you and your brothers to help us. Jun Shiju said, King of Hell Chu, I will divide the manpower into 8 teams in a moment. And each team will need to be led by someone. But no one can pose a threat to a spirit beast apart from me and little you if you want to do so. But you guys can. Jun Shiju looked at Chu Yang and the others with a somewhat envious look in her eyes. That's because all of you have divine weapons in your hands. You want each of us to lead a team, right? Chu Yang said straightforwardly, That's not a problem. Chu Yang had seen that Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang were already 5th-grade king-level experts when they had made their moves a moment ago. It was enough to see that the elixirs and Dukyu's guidance had produced good results in the past few days. Chu Yang would have separated from his brothers even if Jun Shiju hadn't asked him to do so. He would have let them go out to gain experience on their own. They would have had to touch their own understanding of the great path between life and death. Good. I will give each of you a sensing purple crystal. You can inject your spiritual power into the sensing purple crystal as long as you find something. We will receive it immediately. Jun Shiju said, In addition, I will place the lotus core of the mysterious ice jade lotus in the ice field of the northern wilderness to lure the wind fox here. We will surround it from all directions as long as the wind fox appears. We can't let it escape in any case." She sighed deeply and said, "The wind fox is the fastest spirit beast among all the spirit beasts. It's also the most difficult to catch one. But we have no choice but to target it now. This person who has come to extract the blood essence of a spirit beast is truly hateful." Chu Yang understood in his heart, the wind fox is the fastest. So, Jun Shiju obviously isn't sure about this. But it's possible to preserve the blood essence because of its fast speed. Good. Chu Yang agreed. Gu Duxing and the others were eager to give it a try. Moreover, you must pay attention to one thing. If you come across a person with a big sarcoma on his face, he's short and fat. Don't get involved with him. Avoid him if you can't. But don't provoke him if you can't avoid him. Jun Shiju hesitated for a moment. Then she finally said, "He's a member of the Shao clan of the upper three heavens. Don't get into a conflict with him." Shao clan of the upper three heavens. Chu Yang silently muttered. Moreover, spirit beasts have never appeared in the upper three heavens. But so many of them have appeared this time. They must be from ancient times. Moreover, some mysterious experts will also appear. You must be careful. Jun Shiju exhorted again. "I'll remember," Chu Yang solemnly replied. "Good. Let's start the operation immediately. We'll be in danger of being preemptively attacked if we're late." Jun Shiju made a prompt decision. She immediately issued a series of orders. She spoke in a clear and organized manner. She separated the troops in an instant and said, "Please." Then she led her team and left like the wind. Dukyu laughed out loud. Then he floated in the air and said with a smile, "King of Hell Chu, this is the first time we've cooperated." His voice hadn't faded when he disappeared in the boundless snow. Gu Duxing cupped his fists in greeting. "Take care of yourself, big brother." Chu Yang hastily shouted, "You guys, wait a moment." "What's the matter?" Dong Wushang stopped his footsteps. "Let me take a look at your sabers and swords. Have they been damaged in the recent battles?" Chu Yang asked in a soft voice. "There's certainly some damage, but it's not serious," Gu Duxing smiled. He took out the black dragon sword and handed it over. Luo Kadi and GMO also handed over their swords. Dong Wushang held his saber and stood on one side. Chu Yang used his hand to check them one by one. He said after a long time, "There's no problem. I'm relieved. How you guys go? Don't delay the important matters." The four of them each led a team and set off. Everyone was full of doubts. What's the matter with Big Brother? Does he want to pass our sabers and swords just to take a look? Just to touch them? The four of them felt that their weapons seemed to be a little different after Chu Yang touched them. But they couldn't tell what exactly was different. Everyone muttered in their hearts, "Seems like it's just my imagination." As they thought about it, they disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang watched them leave, and a faint smile appeared on his face. Just now, he had already used the Calamity Sword to transform these few sabers and swords. The touch of the sun and moon ointment and the injection of the true essence of the weapons had already made these few sabers and swords extraordinary. Instead, they had become divine weapons that could produce spirituality. This benefit could only be truly shown when Gu Duxing, Dong Wushang, and the others used it to a certain extent. Chapter 517. Chu Yang hadn't had time to open his mouth when a king-level expert stepped forward and shouted, "I belong to the dark bamboo. I'll borrow your path for 3 days. What kind of friend is Feng Shui?" His voice sounded like a bronze bell and shattered the snowflakes in the sky. A white shadow flashed in front of them. He said in a gentle and refined manner, "I'm Ao Clan Xie Yun. I've come here to hunt spirit beasts. Since the dark bamboo is borrowing your path, brothers, make way." The flat snow-covered ground in front of them turned over as soon as the order was given. More than a dozen people stood up and retreated to both sides. So, It's Ao Clan Xie Yun, that king-level expert said in a deep voice. Thank you. Chu Yang cupped his hands towards Ao Xie Yun and took the lead to rush out. He disappeared in the wind and snow in front of them in the blink of an eye. Isn't that King of Hell Chu? Why is he here? Ao Xie Yun muttered to himself as he saw more than 40 people rolling away. His heart was full of doubts. Then he waved his hand. Continue to hide. Act according to the plan as soon as someone chases a spirit beast. Everyone complied. The snow-covered ground moved up and down. Then, everyone went back to hide. It was obvious that Ao Xie Yun didn't have any assurance that he could track a spirit beast. But he had chosen the most stupid method. Wait for an opportunity. This method was very stupid. But it was very effective in this world. A spirit beast wouldn't pass through here unless it didn't pass through here. But they would be able to attack it head-on as long as it passed through here. Even if they weren't lucky enough to obtain the blood essence of the spirit beast, they would still be able to leave a good impression on the person who was chasing the spirit beast. After all, they would be able to obtain a little bit of blood as long as that person obtained the whole body of the spirit beast. The white shadow was coming from the far west. It seemed as if it was carrying a hurricane with it. Its entire body was moving forward. It seemed as if it had taken the form of a solid eye of the hurricane. Moreover, the speed of this white shadow was twice as fast as the wind it was carrying. Sometimes it would be in the east and sometimes in the west. It would occasionally flee in the sky and dazzle people's eyes. Most of the time, by the time you saw the white shadow, it would have already fled far away. This kind of speed was truly shocking. However, this white shadow was clearly panicking. In fact, it seemed as if it was running in a panic. As they ran, they would occasionally squeak in fear. Behind them, a nimble figure was chasing after them in the air. His movement technique was elegant, and he did not seem to be fast or slow. However, every time this figure flashed, he had already crossed a distance of several hundred feet. He reached out to grab the little white figure. The white shadow ran away in panic, and the human shadow also disappeared immediately. Little darling, don't go. I only want half of your blood essence. I will definitely not harm your life. Be good, don't run. But how could that white shadow not run? He was almost out of breath. Helplessly, the white shadow turned around and dived into the snow, disappearing without a trace. The shadow in the sky let out a cold snort and suddenly stretched out a hand, grabbing at the void. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, and 100 feet of the ground was grabbed by his hand. It was as if the entire ground had been lifted up. A huge black hole was revealed. The white shadow flashed and escaped from the big hole in a panic. Then, it flashed and turned into a stream of light, running far away. Little darling, don't run. Could it be that you still don't understand that you won't be able to escape from my hands? The figure shook his head and smiled faintly with a somewhat helpless expression. His body flashed across the sky and he chased after her. At this moment, there was a loud roar in the direction where the white shadow was running away. A red shadow soared into the sky as if it was going to burn the sky. The white shadow was overjoyed and ran towards that direction. If it could speak, it would be crying tears of joy. My dear mother, there is finally a scapegoat. The shadow behind him was startled and said, Why is the fire lion here? I have no choice but to kill it with a spoon. He sped up and chased after the white shadow. Not long after, there was another earth-shaking roar. It came from another direction. This is really strange. How many spirit beasts are there in the world-defying stage? How come there are 3 of them here? Even the single-horned dragon has appeared. The shadow muttered a few words, but this is also good. It saves me a long journey. He chased for dozens of miles and suddenly realized, I was wondering why it was so strange. It turns out that someone put a mysterious ice jade lotus in the heart of the wasteland. Thinking of this, he no longer held back his strength. He let out a long roar and increased his speed. This is terrible. That bastard has also rushed here. The old man who was chasing after Mo Qingwu from behind changed his expression and rushed forward even more exasperatedly. It was not easy for me to find one. Don't let him snatch it away. Then, he slapped himself 3 or 4 times in the face without delay. Who asked you to be so muddle-headed at such a crucial time? Look, this is a little strange. He flew over with a whoosh. In another direction far away, a short and fat guy with a big sarcoma on his forehead sniffed in surprise. He raised his head and listened. Then he pointed and said, "Over there. Let's go." The 3 of them immediately changed their direction and ran away. In the extreme north, a man in white shook his head helplessly and muttered, "These guys are really too free to come to the upper 3 heavens to hunt spirit beasts. Aren't there plenty of them in the upper 3 heavens? Could it be that they have other motives? No, I have to go and take a look." Just as he was about to move, he cursed and muttered, "I don't know why those 2 old guys came down this time. I'm not their match. Is it the past? Or the past? Or the past? Motherfucker, let's go then." His thin body suddenly straightened up and spun in the air like a top. With a whoosh, he disappeared without a trace. In the middle of a wasteland, Duke Yu's green robe was already fluttering in the wind. He was fighting with a spirit beast whose entire body was like a raging fire. This time, Duke Yu did not show any mercy at all. Every move he made used all his strength. That raging fire spirit beast was smashed until it howled in pain. Duke Yu's complexion was getting redder and redder. His moves were getting heavier and heavier, and his agility was getting faster and faster. 2 shadows, 1 green and 1 red, had already rolled into a ball. They were fighting against each other and had violently shaken the surrounding snow. A long shadow was flying over from afar. It was a strange creature with a strange horn on its head. It didn't seem to care about the battlefield where Duke Yu was fighting. It shook its head and wagged its tail, and pounced towards the central position. There was a dreamlike lotus in full bloom there. Mysterious ice jade lotus. Lotus heart. Evil creature. Jun Shiju's silhouette left thousands of afterimages in the air. She frantically rushed over, and snatched the mysterious ice jade lotus from under the teeth of this single-horned dragon. She turned her hand, and put it in her bosom. The good thing that was in her hands had flown away out of thin air? How could this single-horned dragon endure this? It suddenly became furious. It opened its big mouth, and roared angrily. Its 4 stump-like legs trampled on the ice field, and made it shake and sway. Jun Shiju's elegant eyebrows wrinkled. She had not expected such a situation to occur. She had only wanted to attract one of these beasts. She had wanted to join forces with Duke Yu and quickly capture it. However, 2 beasts had come at once. She saw that this single-horned dragon wasn't leaving. It was shaking its head and wagging its tail, and was roaring. It was asking for the mysterious ice jade lotus as if it was a creditor. Jun Shiju felt both angry and amused at the same time. This single-horned dragon is willing to give up its life for the mysterious ice jade lotus? The single-horned dragon flew into a rage when it saw that its demands were fruitless. It soared up and rolled up its body in the air. Then, it suddenly stretched out, and a round body that was more than 100 feet long suddenly rushed down. It had taken the initiative to launch an attack. This evil creature doesn't know life from death. Jun Shiju became angry. She brandished her palms in the air and ferociously attacked it. She didn't retreat even a step. That's because Duke Yu would be behind her if she were to retreat. The single-horned dragon let out a muffled roar and flipped over in the air with its 4 claws facing the sky. Jun Shiju roared loudly, and the accumulated snow in the surroundings was shaken up. She quickly retreated and cut into Duke Yu's battle circle like lightning. She didn't care that her palms were bleeding. She shook her hands and crazily threw hundreds of palms towards the fire lion's head. Duke Yu's attack also arrived at the same time. Both of them clearly felt that there were powerful auras approaching them from all 4 directions at a rapid speed. This matter couldn't be delayed. This thing wouldn't be theirs if they delayed even a moment. Therefore, both of them were going all out at this moment. It could be said that this fire lion was extremely unlucky. It had been lured here by the elixir and had come to throw away its life. Its skin, which it had always been proud of, had been cracked open. It had been beaten from top to bottom, and had been turned into a pool of mud. Spirit beasts were indeed powerful. But how could they withstand the siege of two saint-level experts? It didn't even have time to scream. The raging flames were still spurting out from its body. But it had already lost its life. It was buried deep in the ground. Jun Shiju took out a big purple crystal jade bottle. Then she drew a line with her hand and extracted the blood essence from the broken spine of the fire lion. Her face exposed a happy expression. It hasn't been extracted. It's completely intact. She finished extracting the blood essence and took out the inner core of the fire lion. Then, she saw that Duke Yu and the single-horned dragon were already in a tumultuous fight. The single-horned dragon let out a strange cry when it saw that she had raised her head to look at it. It endured Duke Yu's attack and rolled backwards. Then, it turned around and fled in a panic. It couldn't deal with one of them. So, how could it deal with two of them? These two human beings were too frightening for this dragon. It hadn't thought about the consequences when the elixir had been snatched away. But it had fainted now. Spirit beasts certainly had their dignity. So, it was obviously very shameful to flee. But it was better than that stupid lion being skinned alive, right? However, it didn't even notice that it had deviated from the direction it had come from. It wasn't heading towards the direction it had come from. Instead, it was heading towards the east. A small white shadow was crazily fleeing from the east, and was accompanied by a whistling tornado. Today, the second watch, the third watch, I'm working hard. Begging for monthly votes. Chapter 5:18. With a whooshing sound, this small white shadow had already skimmed under the single-horned dragon's body. With the help of the single-horned dragon's huge body, it was about to run away. Suddenly, a strong aura similar to the aura of the person who had been chasing it appeared in front of it. And in the other two directions, there were also strong auras approaching at the same time. Was this an inescapable trap? This small white shadow suddenly panicked. Even with the strength of a spirit beast, its claws were actually numb at this moment. Its eyes rolled a few times, and suddenly felt a very familiar aura from another direction. Without hesitation, it rushed towards that direction. That direction, Chu Yang was rushing over with Jianghu. From afar, he heard the sound of heaven and earth shattering. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat, and he still sped up. Suddenly, a white shadow that was hard to see with the naked eye came over. Before Chu Yang could react, the white shadow had already disappeared. Then, a powerful tornado swept over. The wind blew so hard that they couldn't even open their eyes. Their legs felt weak, and it seemed as if they were about to be swept up into the sky. Chu Yang shouted, and held Jianghu tightly in his arms. Like 1,000 pounds falling, he fixed them on the ice field. With a whoosh, the tornado blew past, and formed a tornado behind the two of them. It went far away in a straight line. What's going on? Chu Yang opened his eyes, and spat out a mouthful of snow that was poured into his mouth by the tornado. He shook his head, and shook off the snow and ice on his head. Jianghu obviously didn't know either. She shook her head blankly. The two of them didn't notice that in the pocket of Jianghu's extremely fat raccoon fur coat, a small snow-white head cautiously poked out. Its eyes rolled around, and a snow-white tail came out from behind its head, standing upright and swaying. Then, with a whoosh sound, its small head shrank back into Jianghu's pocket. Only a section of its tail was left outside like a flagpole. Then, a small and delicate white claw stretched out, and quietly pulled the tail inside. Regarding this, Jianghu and Chu Yang were actually completely unaware. Jianghu's raccoon fur blanket was specially prepared by Chu Yang. It wrapped Jianghu's petite body inside, and then made a big bag for snacks. The two of them had never dreamed that such a small place would become the hiding place of a formidable spirit beast. In the pocket, the small head moved slightly and changed into a more comfortable position. It lay down and covered its body with its tail. This way, it was the same color as the raccoon fur coat. As long as this tail was not removed, no one would think that there was a spirit beast hidden underneath. The little thing breathed a sigh of relief, and looked around with its rolling eyes. There was actually something very, very sweet right next to it. She tried to open the candy and put it into her mouth. But it was too delicious. It was too delicious. Could this be heaven? The pure aura on Imo Qingwu's body made it feel very comfortable. So, it couldn't help but close its eyes in satisfaction. Something was not right. How could this little girl gather spiritual energy on her body? And it was the purest kind? Wah, it was really too comfortable. This little spirit beast had recognized this place in such a short time, and wasn't willing to leave. It looked at the bag full of colorful candies. Humph, there would be so many good things to eat if I went back. Not to mention that this little girl could gather spiritual energy. Wouldn't I have a tail if I could stay by her side and practice? Moreover, no one would be able to recognize my true value if I had a human as a cover. This was a good thing that could kill 80 birds with one stone. But how could I stay by her side for a long time? The little thing's eyes were rolling around anxiously. This matter was somewhat difficult to handle. A thunderous sound came from midair. Everyone looked up and was immediately dumbfounded. Especially Jun Shizhu and Dukyu. They were even more dumbfounded. They saw that the single-horned dragon, which was still alive and powerful a moment ago, was now drooping down softly and issuing a mournful cry from its mouth. Its tail was easily tied up by a white-robed man's hand. This white-robed man was standing high in the air. However, it seemed as if he was standing on the summit of a group of mountains. The ground under his feet was very solid. He gently shook his hand, and that formidable spirit beast, the single-horned dragon, was swung back and forth like a horsewhip. It seemed as if he was playing down the matter in an indifferent manner. The single-horned dragon issued a mournful whining sound. The white-robed man scolded it with a smile. Isn't it just a little bit of your blood essence? Look at how useless you are. The single-horned dragon whined twice, and whined twice. Then, it listlessly hung its head down. It had accepted its fate. Jun Shiju's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. This man is so powerful. Is he a supreme-level expert? The white-robed man seemed to have finished dealing with it. He casually tossed the single-horned dragon, and it immediately soared into the sky. This toss had covered a distance of several thousand feet. I'll spare your life, the white-robed man indifferently said. Then he suddenly raised his eyebrows and shouted, I'll speak. Spare its life. Could it be that you want to die, you bastard? His voice wasn't loud. In fact, the people present on the scene didn't feel anything. However, it flew towards the west like a cannonball. The short and stout man who was chasing after the single-horned dragon suddenly screamed. His body fell down from midair and rolled on the ground again and again. It turned out that the white-robed man's words had turned into an extremely powerful spirit energy attack. It had flown for dozens of miles, and had suddenly exploded in the ears of this short and stout man. He had understood it, and had received an unprecedented shock. This kind of controlling ability was simply unimaginable. This short and stout man had been bleeding from his 7 orifices by the time he stood up. He looked very ferocious. Moreover, he looked even more ferocious with the big sarcoma on his head. The 2 people beside him were shocked. They hastily stepped forward. Master, what's wrong with you, Master? The short and stout man exposed an extremely frightened look in his eyes. His eyes flickered as he looked in the direction where the sound had come from. However, he didn't have the slightest desire to get his hands on the single-horned dragon anymore. Come here, the white-robed man coldly said. This voice had also passed through dozens of miles of space, and had arrived in front of the short and stout man. Then, the air in front of the short and stout man vibrated, and 2 words suddenly appeared out of thin air, Come here. At this time, the voice transmitted from the empty space. It was the same 2 words, Come here. It was full of authority that couldn't be refused. This was a kind of power that could dominate the world. The short and stout man's legs went soft, and he almost knelt down. He forcibly restrained himself and said, Come with me. Fearful. Don't speak carelessly. He muttered in his heart, Motherfucker, it seems that I'm always encountering ghosts this time. I haven't even met one in the upper 3 heavens. But I'm encountering one in the upper three heavens. What the fuck is this? Do I have any other choice than to admit my bad luck when encountering such a master? He hung his head dejectedly and led his two subordinates in the direction of the voice. The white-robed man who was rushing over from the north smiled bitterly. I've really met a ghost. What should I do? He was thinking when he heard a voice. Why are you still standing there in a daze? You come here as well. The white-robed man smiled bitterly. He had no choice but to hurry over. A burst of wind and clouds surged in the south. A violent silhouette suddenly arrived from the horizon. It seemed as if the entire sky had collapsed along with his arrival. Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu looked at each other. They felt shocked in their hearts. These two people were already at the top of the pyramid in the upper three heavens. It could be said that there was no third person in the upper three heavens whose cultivation was higher than that of Duke Yu and Jun Shizhu. However, the white-robed man who had appeared first was far superior to the two of them. The cultivation of the violent silhouette that was about to arrive was perhaps on par with that of this white-robed man. The two of them looked at each other again, and saw that their eyes had calmed down instead. The matter had already reached this point. It wasn't a disaster if it was a blessing. But it couldn't be avoided if it was a disaster. Do whatever you want. The man who had been chasing Mo Qingwu from the south arrived here. He saw the white-robed man at first glance. One of them was standing high in the sky, and the other was standing a little lower. Their four eyes met. All the spirit energies in the air suddenly issued a dense collision sound from the sky the moment their four eyes met. Then, a black hole-like crack in the air spread down from the sky and reached the ground between the two people. It divided the world into two parts. A crack of unknown depth suddenly appeared on the ground with a bang. It was 3 feet wide and couldn't be sideways. A burst of cold wind blew out from this crack. It seemed as if it was leading straight to the netherworld. The two of them had only stared at each other. But it had produced such a powerful force. Chu Yang's heart jumped as he saw this. Monster! Truly a monster! Chu Yang looked at the expressions on the faces of Jun Shizhu and Duke Yu. And he was even more certain that these two people were supreme-level experts. These were the people who had stood at the peak of the Double Heavens continent since ancient times. Apart from the supreme-level experts, there wasn't any other level that could be so powerful. What are you doing here? The white-robed man faintly asked with a warm smile on his face. He still had his head lowered and was looking at the people on the ground. It seemed as if a supreme king was overlooking all living beings. He seemed to be talking to the people on the ground. But he was actually asking that person high in the sky. The crack in the air had already disappeared. Following this sentence, a faint airflow slowly rose into the air. At the same time, a dense voice said, "What are you doing here?" Then, the voices suddenly staggered. It seemed as if countless people were speaking in an intricate and disorderly manner. "What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" Chapter 5:19. The man in white spoke alone, but it was as if the whole world was repeating his words. Everything was going along with him. Even the mountains were responding and echoing. His voice rumbled and rushed to the sky. The snowflakes in the sky stopped falling after he spoke. They just floated in the sky. Above, the strange old man laughed strangely and said, "Then why are you here?" His voice was normal, but it was condescending. One spoke first, and the other spoke later. But the two voices collided in the sky. With a dull thud, the snowflakes in the sky suddenly fell down with a swoosh. With a thud, a wall of snow fell on the ground. In this short period of time, a layer of snow had formed in the sky because of the heavy snowfall. Its weight also increased a lot. After the wall of snow fell, the snowflakes in the sky began to fall at a normal speed. The two people's bodies didn't shake at all. They were calm and relaxed. Apparently, they were evenly matched. One was higher than the other, and they were facing each other from a distance. "I'm here to collect some essence blood of spirit beasts to make medicine." The man in white laughed softly and said, It seems that after so many years, your cultivation didn't fall behind at all. It seems that we still have to fight for who is the best in the world for a few years. Best in the world? The old man in gray laughed and said, if my meridians weren't damaged by that bastard Tribulation Sword Master, I would have killed you with my palm. How would you have the chance to fight for the best in the world with me? What you're saying is simply bullshit. The man in white was not angry. With a humble and reasonable attitude, he scolded gently, back then, your meridians were damaged by him. Didn't I have my legs broken by him too? My meridians were cut off? There's only a difference of 1 year. Why do you have to bring out such old vinegar to talk about? The two people didn't care about other people's feelings at all. They just chatted casually. Below, Chu Yang suddenly opened his eyes wide. He only felt that his ears were rumbling with thunder. The previous Tribulation Sword Master. These two people were actually people who had fought with the previous master of Calamity Sword. Doesn't that mean these two old guys have lived for more than 10,000 years? What the fuck, what kind of old monster was this? Chu Yang immediately became vigilant. No wonder the sword spirit warned me. It seems that if I reveal the Calamity Sword, these two people might be able to tell that I'm the Calamity Sword Master. Thinking of this, Chu Yang strictly ordered the sword spirit not to move and not to contact him. He also warned the Calamity Sword not to move and fall into a deep sleep. It was better to be safe than sorry, and these two were actually fighting for the title of World's #1. Didn't that mean, in the current heavenly layer, the cultivation of these two people was the most powerful? No one else could surpass these two people? How valiant! However, he hadn't expected that he would encounter such a person in the northern wasteland today. It was an extremely unexpected surprise. It wasn't just Chu Yang. Mo Qing who didn't know what Tribulation Sword Master was. Jun Shizhu, Duke Yu, Gudu Xing, and the other king-level experts were so startled that they opened their mouths wide. A few of them groaned in pain. He was someone who had fought with the Master of Calamity Sword 10,000 years ago. Oh my God, the gray-robed old man snorted and said, it's all because that bastard suddenly disappeared. Otherwise, this old man would have looked for him to settle this account. The white-robed man chuckled. He shook his head and laughed in a low voice. Ning Tianya, you're still boasting shamelessly. You're making this old man despise you. The gray-robed man angrily said, Bu Lu Qing, don't you want to take revenge for that sword attack? Why are you pretending to be magnanimous? Do you think that I don't know your sinister, despicable, shameless, lowly, and filthy true face? The white-robed man Bu Lu Qing elegantly shook his head. Of course, I want to. But he's gone missing. Or I should say that he's dead. Why do you keep talking about him every day since you can't find him? You're just making yourself angry. You can't do anything except make yourself angry. Ning Tianya, it's not that I want to criticize you. But you should learn from me. Your chest is too small. After saying that, he actually let out a sincere sigh. It seemed as if he felt pity for his old rival who had been entangled with him for more than 10,000 years. Bu Lu Qing had been entangled with him for more than 10,000 years. So, how could he not understand his old rival's temperament? He knew that his old rival would get angry if he said these words. So, he had to be prepared to find a place to fight with this old man. However, he hadn't expected that Ning Tianya would laugh mischievously and say, who cares if my chest is small or not? I'm not learning from you. Then he sat down in the air. He raised his head and looked at the snowflakes in the sky. He said, you should hurry up and finish your work. Then you should leave quickly. This old man wants to bask in the sun here. Bu Lu Qing was startled. How did this old bastard suddenly change his temperament? This isn't like him. Bu Lu Qing was confused in an instant. Bask in the sun? You've come to the northern wasteland for 3 days to bask in the sun. Only an old bastard like you can do this. This place is covered with dark clouds and heavy snow all year round. Where does the sun come from? This old bastard doesn't lie seriously. Bu Lu Qing was lost in his thoughts when he heard a snoring sound from afar. A big meatball was running over, panting for breath. He walked closer to take a look. Then he realized that it was a short and fat man. His flat head was pressed against his neck. His big belly was trembling up and down. His two small and short legs were running in a crisscross pattern. He looked like a big watermelon with two chopsticks stuck under it. And a small melon was placed on top of it. As he walked closer, he could see that this person had a round face, a round nose, round eyes, and round mouth. The most bizarre thing was that there was actually a round lump on his round forehead. Senior. The short and fat man was running all the way. He didn't dare to use his spirit power as he approached. He was sweating profusely as he ran towards the white-robed man. He then said while panting, "I'm Xiao Changfeng of the Xiao clan. This short and fat man has such an artistic and unrestrained name." Everyone almost spat out their rice when they heard this. However, they didn't dare to. Xiao Changfeng of the Xiao clan. He is a member of the Xiao clan, one of the ruling clans of the upper three heavens. The people of the big clans of the upper three heavens came to the upper three heavens like imperial envoys. Who would dare to offend them? The white-robed man looked at this short and fat man in astonishment. He shook his head for a long time. Then he gently scolded, "Motherfucker, you've wasted such a beautiful name." Yes. Xiao Changfeng's short and fat body bowed. He wiped the sweat on his face and said, "It's my fault. I shouldn't have wasted such a beautiful name. I'll report to the clan lord when I return to the clan. I'll change my name." "Change it to Fat Pig Xiao," Bu Luqing insipidly said. "Thank you for giving me this name, Senior. I'll be called Fat Pig Xiao from today onwards." Xiao Changfeng excitedly turned his head and shouted, "Did you hear that? Senior has changed my name. Call me Fat Pig Xiao from now on. Do you understand?" This short and fat man had obviously heard the words of the white-robed man. He knew that this white-robed man was a supreme figure in the upper three heavens. How could he dare to be disrespectful? Let's not talk about being ridiculed by the opposite party. Even if the opposite party forced him to eat shit, he would still happily eat it. He wouldn't dare to have the slightest hesitation. Everyone was dumbstruck. Is this a member of the ruling clan of the upper three heavens? How can he be so spineless? Only Duke Yu stared at this Fat Pig Xiao with a complicated look in his eyes. This Fat Pig Xiao can be big or small. He's sinister and vicious. He immediately changed his attitude once he discovered that there's a super expert here. He didn't hesitate to lower his voice in order to save his life. However, one thing was certain. Everyone here would suffer under Fat Pig Xiao's evil hands if Bu Luqing were to leave this place now. They would be silenced by him. He would never allow these people to live and spread the word of his shameless groveling at this moment. Bu Luqing looked at him with disgust and said, "You wait on one side." Then, Bu Luqing turned his head, looked at Jun Shizhu, and said with a good-natured smile, "Little girl, I know that you've just obtained a portion of Spirit Beast's blood essence. And this old man needs a large amount of Spirit Beast's blood essence to refine medicine. I wonder if you can part with it? Rest assured, this old man won't treat you unfairly." Jun Shizhu hesitated for a while. She felt conflicted in her heart. She tossed and turned for a long time. Then she finally made up her mind. She raised her head and said, "Senior is very resourceful. So, you must have seen that this junior has reached a bottleneck. And I need the Spirit Beast's blood essence to break through. I'm drooling over the conditions that Senior has promised me, but it's somewhat difficult for me to accept." Chu Yong couldn't help but smack his lips. This woman is very strong. Even a supreme-level expert wants something from her. But she refuses without any hesitation. Bu Luqing hadn't expected that Jun Shizhu would refuse. He had thought that he would receive the Spirit Beast's blood essence the moment he had spoken those words. So, he had been waiting and considering what to give to the other party as compensation. However, he hadn't expected that the other party would throw such a stiff sentence at him. "Do you mean to refuse me?" Bu Luqing wrinkled his brows. His complexion slightly changed. He couldn't believe that he had asked this question. Jun Shizhu nodded and said, "Yes, this junior refuses." She smiled and said, This junior doesn't know why so many spirit beasts have suddenly appeared in the northern wilderness. But I presume that it must be related to you, senior. Senior needs the blood essence of spirit beasts. And these spirit beasts have appeared. Bulu Qing nodded slightly. His eyes were half closed as he said, yes. This junior also doesn't know what the consequences will be if I refuse senior. Jun Shiju raised her head and resolutely said, I also know that these spirit beasts have been lured out by senior. But I'm afraid that I won't be able to advance for the rest of my life if I miss this opportunity. She insipidly said, please understand, senior. Duke Yu faintly smiled. He took a step forward and stood side by side with her. His sharp eyes looked at Bulu Qing in the sky. However, there wasn't even the slightest trace of fear on his face. There was a huge difference between their strengths. But the imposing aura that Duke Yu was displaying at this moment could faintly rival Bulu Qing's. I'm inferior to you. You're a supreme level expert. But I won't hesitate to fight you if you want to fight. Chapter 520. Jun Shiju was startled. She shouted, Little Yu, go back. Duke Yu faintly smiled but didn't speak anything. His blue robe fluttered as he stood in front of her. Fat Pig Xiao, no. Xiao Changfeng angrily said, bullshit. Senior wants your spirit beast blood because he thinks highly of you. He's giving you face. Stinky woman, you don't know how to appreciate favors. He took a step forward and was about to attack. Duke Yu sneered. He took a step forward and insipidly said, you fat pig. I can guarantee that you'll die in front of us if you dare to take one more step forward. Xiao Changfeng was startled. He looked at Duke Yu with a gloomy and cold gaze. He was just about to scold Duke Yu when a strong energy suddenly descended from the sky. It grabbed Xiao Changfeng's neck and threw him out. Along the way, Xiao Changfeng continuously received hundreds of slaps. At that time, Xiao Changfeng's originally pig-like head became even more similar to a pig's head. He only heard Bulu Qing angrily say, how can this old man's business be managed by a shameless, despicable and shameless dwarf like you? I'll pull out your tongue if you dare to say one more word. Xiao Changfeng immediately kept quiet out of fear. He stood there and lowered his head. His eyes flashed with a vicious light, but he didn't dare to let anyone see it. A wild laughter came from the sky. Bulu Qing. You've grown up. There are so many spirit beasts here. You could have just grabbed a few of them. But you're snatching the things of a little girl. Don't you know shame? Bulu Qing coldly snorted. He didn't reply. He only looked at Jun Shiju and Duke Yu. Both of them didn't have any fear on their faces. Their bodies were straight, and they didn't have the slightest bit of timidity. Fine. Bulu Qing coldly snorted and said, I won't force you if that's the case. But I don't want others to say that I'm bullying the weak. It won't look good on my face. He turned around to leave after he had finished speaking. After all, it would have been a big loss of face if he'd been rejected despite his status. Bulu Qing didn't want to stay here any longer. Suddenly, a burst of energy vibrated in the air. Another white-clothed man floated over. His white shadow appeared. He had already arrived on the scene. He elegantly bowed with his hands clasped in front. I've been summoned by Senior. Greetings to Senior Bu. Greetings to Senior Ning. Bulu Qing snorted. Then he rolled his eyes and said, do you law enforcement officers also need spirit beasts? Why are you here? The man in white smiled and said, that's not it. It's just that this Brother Xiao violated the rules set by the enforcers and came to the upper three heavens for his own selfish reasons. I had no choice but to come and take a look. He paused for a while before he continued, as for the spirit beasts, I don't dare to touch them. Bulu Qing snorted. He glared at Xiao Changfeng and said, this fatty is quite charming. He actually attracted the law enforcers of the heaven to follow him. Xiao Changfeng had long been silent like a cicada in winter, cold sweat flowing down his back. Even he himself didn't know that a heaven layer enforcer had followed him down the stairs. At this time, Mo Qingwu was hiding behind Chu Yang. She saw that Xiao Changfeng was angry, but didn't dare to say anything. Moreover, he had lowered his head. So, he looked even more like a rubber ball. She immediately felt that it was funny. So, she moved close to Chu Yang's ear and said, "Elder brother Chu Yang, that short fatty is really fun to play with." Hee hee. Her voice was very soft. So, Chu Yang could only vaguely hear it. However, Xiao Changfeng had a high cultivation level. He heard it clearly. His face immediately turned angry. He looked at Mo Qingwu with a cold and sinister gaze. He thought to himself, "Wait until these two people leave. I'll teach you a lesson." The little thing in Mo Qingwu's pocket also heard it when she spoke. It couldn't help but be curious. So, it stuck out half of its head from the pocket. It wanted to sneak a look at that short fatty. Xiao Changfeng glanced over and immediately saw the small spirit beast's head in Mo Qingwu's pocket. His eyes immediately lit up. Could it be Wind Fox? Wouldn't my purpose of coming down here be achieved if I get this thing? He rolled his eyes. Then he lowered his head. "You can go now." Bu Luqing looked at Xiao Changfeng and said coldly, "Don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. Get lost." Xiao Changfeng's fat body trembled. He said, "This junior will follow senior's orders. I won't dare to act recklessly." He rolled his eyes and said, "It's just that this little girl is a person that my clan has issued strict orders to arrest. This junior wants to take her away. I ask senior to help me." He pointed at Mo Qingwu as he said this. Chu Yang was furious. He took a step forward. But he didn't get enough time to speak. He saw Bu Luqing frown and look at Xiao Changfeng. "Your clan ordered you to come down here and capture this little girl?" Xiao Changfeng said respectfully, "I ask senior to help this junior this time on account of your friendship with my ancestor, Xiao Qinyu." The Xiao Qinyu he was talking about was the founder of one of the great clans, the Xiao clan. He had a friendship with Bu Luqing in those days. However, he disappeared not long after. Bu Luqing suddenly heard the name of his old friend from 10,000 years ago. He couldn't help but feel frustrated. It seemed as if the past 10,000 years were all in front of him. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh and said, "Morning rain and evening sun don't regret the sword. Autumn and spring waves meet the wind." 10,000 years. All right, this old man will help you. Xiao Changfeng couldn't help but feel ecstatic in his heart. He said, "Thank you very much, senior." Bu Luqing coldly snorted and said, "What you want is the wind fox in her pocket, right? But I'll help you because you mentioned a name from 10,000 years ago. And it touched my state of mind. I'll help you, but that doesn't mean that I won't punish you. If everyone in the world thinks that I, Bu Luqing, am a fool like you, wouldn't that make this old man lose face?" He angrily snorted as he said this. This snort was like a huge hammer that came down from the sky. Xiao Changfeng's left shoulder suddenly got smashed into pieces. He screamed miserably. His complexion turned deathly pale. He trembled as he said, "Thank you very much for your lesson, senior." "Go," Bu Luqing coldly said. Xiao Changfeng turned his head and straightened his body. His arm had just been crippled. But he still didn't put these mere king-level experts in his eyes since he was a monarch-level expert. Clang clang clang. Gu Du Xing, Luo Kadi, and GMO unsheathed their swords at the same time. The snow-filled skies suddenly became bleak and desolate. A heavy and vigorous aura suddenly erupted. Dong Wushang slowly pulled out his black saber. Gu Du Xing raised his eyebrows. His eyebrows were like swords. His gaze was as sharp as a sword. His body was as straight as a sword. He and his sword seemed to have turned into an inseparable whole at this moment. He emitted a cold, murderous aura as he locked onto Xiao Changfeng. Dong Wushang raised his eyebrows. It was as if two treasured sabers had been unsheathed at the same time. His gaze was like two flying sabers that flew horizontally and horizontally. His entire body seemed to have turned into a big saber that wanted to cut through the world. His body slightly bent forward like a leopard that was about to hunt its prey. He locked onto Xiao Changfeng. Chu Yang took a step forward and stood in front of Mo Qingwu. He put his hands behind his back and proudly looked at Xiao Changfeng. The sword spirit had received Chu Yang's instructions. He was already fully concentrated. Take over Chu Yang's body. I must use all 10 moves of the Calamity Sword within one strike to eliminate this nauseating short and fat man. I won't hesitate even if I have to expose my identity in front of these two supreme-level experts. Bu Lu Qing exclaimed in surprise. Then he muttered, 5 top-notch constitutions. They have guts and courage. What a pity. It was obvious that Chu Yang and the other 4 weren't a match for Xiao Changfeng in his eyes. However, he had already made a promise. So he wouldn't change his mind. Xiao Changfeng ferociously roared, "Go!" The 3 of them pounced forward at the same time. "Go fuck your mother!" A voice suddenly came down. Immediately after, a voice from high up in the sky shouted, "This fat pig! Do you dare to touch a finger of that little girl's? Why don't you try?" However, this voice was a little too late. Xiao Changfeng's fat body had already pounced forward. He couldn't take it back even if he wanted to. Anyone in his place wouldn't have the slightest scruple. Bu Lu Qing had spoken. Moreover, he had agreed. So, who would dare to stop him? Therefore, Xiao Changfeng hadn't thought that this matter could still cause problems. He obviously knew that Ning Tianyu was also here. However, Bu Lu Qing had spoken. Could it be that Ning Tianyu wouldn't give him face? This was something that had to be given. He would have given it if he were in Bu Lu Qing's place. Therefore, he nimbly pounced forward. He carried the momentum of a thunderbolt. Therefore, it was a tragedy for him. He hadn't thought that the current Ning Tianyu wouldn't care about Bu Lu Qing's face. Ning Tianyu had been waiting in the sky. He hadn't come down to reveal his true purpose. He clearly knew the preciousness of this heavenly Yin body and innate spirit meridians. He was afraid that Bu Lu Qing would discover Mo Qing Wu's aptitude if he exposed his purpose. Then, Bu Lu Qing would snatch her away from him. Both of them had lived for so long. However, they had always adhered to the principle of better to have nothing than to have something shoddy. So, neither of them had accepted any disciple. However, both of them had a knot in their hearts. Don't tell me that there's no inheritance for these supreme skills? Will these earth-shattering martial arts become a legend when I leave this world one day? Ning Tianyu put himself in Bu Lu Qing's shoes. He knew that he would have snatched her away if he were Bu Lu Qing. Therefore, he hadn't acted blindly without thinking. As long as Bu Lu Qing left, everything would be fine. However, he hadn't expected that Bu Lu Qing would leave after losing a lot of face. This damn fatty had made such a move. He had set his sights on Mo Qing Wu. Ning Tianyu was so angry that his stomach was about to burst. If human flesh could be eaten, he would have already chewed and swallowed this fatty long ago. Fuck. This wretched and short fatty is a damned shit-stirrer. How could Ning Tianyu remain calm when he saw this fatty pouncing towards his disciple? However, his shout didn't have any effect on him. Ning Tianyu's anger rose from the bottom of his heart. Then he jumped down. Xiao Changfeng was about to catch Mo Qing Wu when Gu Du Xing and the others arrived on their flying swords. Xiao Changfeng's body suddenly disappeared. Looking over in the blink of an eye, he saw that Xiao Changfeng was already lifted up in midair by an old man wearing a gray robe with one hand, while the other hand slapped him thrice. Is this old man's word so unreliable? Chapter 521. Xiao Changfeng felt dizzy and disoriented. His heart and guts had been torn apart. His entire body had turned ice cold. How did I manage to get rid of Bu Lu Qing with great difficulty? But Ning Tianyu is still thinking about me? I'm done for, Senior, please spare my life. Xiao Changfeng was about to beg for mercy. But Ning Tianyu had already thrown him up. He then grabbed Xiao Changfeng's ankle with one hand and smashed him on a big rock like a meteor hammer. He then angrily cursed, "Do you think that this old man won't dare to touch you because you have Bu Lu Qing's support?" Xiao Changfeng only had time to say half a sentence. "Senior, please consider my Xiao clan," before he was already swung onto the big rock. The second half of his sentence was smashed away along with the flesh and blood of his entire body. Do I have to touch you? Surnamed Xiao? So what if his surname is Xiao? Even if you are a bastard from one of the ruling clans of the upper three heavens, this old man will still smash you. Memory's old man Ning Tianya cursed as he swung. By the third time, Xiao Changfeng's fat body had already turned into a pile of minced meat. There was only a smelly foot left in Ning Tianya's hand. Ning Tianya threw out the smelly foot with a loud bang. His anger hadn't subsided yet. You actually dare to threaten me with the big clans? This world is crazy. Then, Ning Tianya stretched out his hands and roared furiously, "Die!" Two sharp bursts of energy exploded. The remaining two experts of the Xiao clan did not make a sound. They did not even have the time to beg for mercy. With a bang, their bodies exploded like firecrackers. Bu Lu Qing's pupils shrank. This Ning Tianya often yells and screams. But he has never been this angry. Seeing that Ning Tianya's body had unexpectedly blocked in front of that little girl again, he couldn't help but think, could it be related to this little girl? Ning Tianya waved his hand and said to that heavenly layer law enforcer, "Well, there's nothing for you to do. The short and fat man you were in charge of supervising is already dead. You can go back to the upper three heavens." He shouted arrogantly as if he was the law enforcer's superior. "Yes, Junior will take his leave." The man in white smiled bitterly, bowed to both of them, and turned to leave. He thought to himself that the Xiao clan had suffered a loss this time. Xiao Changfeng had died in the hands of Ning Tianya, and the Xiao clan probably wouldn't even dare to mention it. They could only pinch their noses and admit it. If they were to deal with Ning Tianya, cough cough, the white-robed man thought for a while. It seemed that the Xiao clan still did not possess such strength now. Unless they invited the few old ancestors to come out and besiege him. It seemed that the chances of victory were not great. Forget it, what does this have to do with me? I just have to bring the news back and be done with it. The man in white left. Ning Tianya stood upright in front of Imo Qingwu. He ignored the thanks of Gu Duxing and the others and said, "You guys should also leave." He was talking to Jun Shizhu and Dukyu. Then he added, "Little girl, your surname is Jun, right?" Jun Shizhu replied, "Yes. I don't know who senior is." "Yes, you are a descendant of the Jun family." Ning Tianya waved his hand. Let's go, let's go. If you have time to see that old but immortal ancestor of yours, tell him that Ning Tianya wants to have a drink with him." Jun Shizhu remained silent for a while. She wanted to say, "I don't know where that legendary ancestor is now. Moreover, the Jun clan has long been gone." However, she swallowed this thought back to her mind. However, it would seem that she was asking for help if she had said so. Jun Shizhu didn't like this feeling. Therefore, she bowed respectfully and said, "This junior will take her leave in that case. I will certainly pass on your message if I see the old ancestor." She nodded and bid farewell to Chu Yang. Then she and Dukyu led the dark bamboo and left with a whistling sound. "You still haven't left?" Ning Tianya had steeled his heart to remove all obstacles. So, he said to the empty Bu Lu Qing, go quickly, go quickly. I will come and find you for a fight in a few days." Bu Lu Qing snorted. He looked at Ning Tianya with great interest and said, "Why would I stay for a few days? If you want to fight, we can do it now. How about we go to the Wind and Thunder platform and have a big fight now?" "I don't have time right now," Ning Tianya replied without any trace of politeness. "You go quickly." He kept urging Bu Lu Qing to leave. However, the more he urged Bu Lu Qing, the more doubtful Bu Lu Qing became. So, Bu Lu Qing didn't leave and said, "You don't have time? How come I don't see you busy?" "I have something to do." Ning Tianya roared. Bu Lu Qing stroked his smooth chin. There was a thought-provoking look in his eyes as he said, "Old Ning, you haven't taken a fancy to these 5 youngsters, have you? To be honest, these 5 little guys have good constitution. Especially the one beside you who uses a saber, and the other one who uses a sword. They are all heaven-sent geniuses. You want to accept disciples?" The hearts of Gu Duxing and the others tightened when they heard this. What if a supreme-level expert accepts them as disciples? Luo Kudi and Ji Mo's eyes lit up. They were eager to give it a try. However, Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang looked at each other and saw the firmness in each other's eyes. Nonsense. Ning Tianya's heart skipped a beat as he said, I don't fancy these 5 little guys. Ha! These 2 little guys won't go with you even if you fancy them. Bu Lu Qing mischievously laughed, unless you want the other 2 who use swords. Ning Tianya was startled. He had heard the hidden meaning in Bu Lu Qing's words. He turned his head to look at Gu Duxing and Dong Wushang and sized them up. Then he let out a long sigh and said, yes, these 2 won't go with anyone. On the other side, Chu Yang was somewhat puzzled. He asked, why does Senior say so? Chu Yang was obviously reluctant to part with his brothers. But he also knew that this was a great fortune. Gu Duxing and the others' future achievements would be limitless if they were accepted as disciples by the 2 supreme-level experts. Moreover, the time it would take would be shortened by a lot. Ning Tianya looked at Chu Yang from the corner of his eyes and said, you obviously can't see it with your little eyesight. One of these 2 little guys has sword bones all over his body, and the other has saber blood all over his body. They aren't heaven-sent geniuses with special constitutions. But they already have the embryonic form of a great master with a saber and a sword. They will only cripple themselves if they follow us and practice our martial arts. He insipidly said, people like them can only fight in the Jianghu with a saber and a sword. They can only walk on the path of a great master as long as they don't die in the end. Bu Lu Qing chuckled in the sky. There have been many such people since ancient times. But there are very few who can truly become a great master without dying. That's because this is a path full of thorns. Every step is filled with murderous intent. It's really a path of death. Embryonic form of a great master. Chu Yang's eyes flashed. He looked at his 2 brothers and couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in his heart. As for the other 2, they're indifferent. Ning Tianya looked at Luo Kudi and Jigua from the corner of his eyes. These 2 are glib-tongued and slippery. They're slippery and slippery. They're 2 big slippery fellows. They exude a sense of mischievousness from head to toe. Even a supreme-level expert would be angered to death by them sooner or later if they were accepted as disciples. Bu Lu Qing laughed out loud in the sky. He agreed and said, yes. Moreover, these 2 guys' aptitudes aren't very good. Their ruthlessness is somewhat fixed. They can't be changed if they don't work hard. They're indeed not good material to be disciples. Luo Kudi and Ji Mo's faces darkened. They felt indignant in their hearts. Are the 2 of us so unbearable? We can't be angered to death by us. We can't beat you 2. If we could beat you, we would have beaten you 2 old bastards to death right here, and you're still talking about angering us to death? How slow would that be? Their roots are somewhat fixed. They can't be changed if they don't work hard. We must change it. The reverence in their hearts towards the supreme-level experts suddenly vanished like smoke in thin air as they thought of this. They straightened their backs, straightened their necks, and raised their heads. However, they tilted their heads and looked to one side. An untamed feeling rose in their hearts. You said that the 2 of us were unbearable. We'll show you what we can do. We must let the world know that the supreme-level experts can also be wrong. 2 old bastards. But Bu Lu Qing and Ning Tianya looked at each other. Chu Yang pondered for a moment. Then he lowered his head. He didn't want Luo Kudi and GMO to see the gratitude in his eyes. He was grateful to Ning Tianya and Bu Lu Qing. Luo Kudi, GMO, and Miao Butong had always been Chu Yang's biggest worry. These 3 people's roots were in the upper echelons. However, they were definitely not top-notch. However, Dong Wushang and Gu Duxing had indisputable top-notch aptitudes. The brothers seemed to be on par with each other now. However, the gap between them wasn't big. Once they reached a higher level, these 3 people would definitely be pulled further and further away from each other. This was something that no one could help with. Even if Chu Yang used elixirs to continuously improve, it would be impossible for him to catch up with the overall progress. If he used too many elixirs, it would be completely harmful to them. Moreover, Miao Butong was a little stronger. However, Luo Kadi and GMO were born lazy. Moreover, they belonged to the type of people who didn't have any goals in life. They were the type of people who would just muddle along and wait for death. Chu Yang had always wanted to change them. However, he didn't know where to start. Today, the two supreme-level experts had, unintentionally, shaped the direction of their life's efforts. They had changed them from the root. Although it was just 2 short sentences, the effect of these 2 sentences was unparalleled. The words were the same. However, the effect would be completely different if they were spoken by different people. If Xie Dan Qiong and Ao Xie Yun had said the words of Ning Tianya and Bu Lu Qing, GMO and Luo Kadi would have fought them to the death. Because this was the contempt of jealousy. If Chu Yang had said it, the two of them would have had a grudge in their hearts. Are you saying that the two of us aren't compatible? Therefore, Chu Yang had never said it. However, when it came from Ning Tianya and Bu Lu Qing's mouths, it was a kind of final decision. This had instead aroused the fighting spirit of Luo Kadi and GMO. However, Ning Tianya and Bu Lu Qing were now looking at Chu Yang. Both of them shook their heads. There was some confusion in their eyes. This was because they couldn't see through this youngster's physique. It was obviously a very trashy root. However, there was too much uncertainty. What was going on? However, Bu Lu Qing looked away after a glance. He smiled and said, Ning Ningya, move aside. Let me look at the little girl behind you. Ning Tianya jumped up as if he had been stung by a scorpion. Why? He was angry and anxious. Motherfucker, I knew that this bastard would stay here and not leave. It felt wrong. Today, I had a headache for the whole day. My temples have been throbbing in pain since the early hours of the morning. It's extremely uncomfortable. I got up early in the morning and went to the hospital for a checkup. They said that I was too tired and had a slight migraine. However, it doesn't matter. I'll be fine after some rest. They told me not to panic. The doctor asked me, Did you stay up all night yesterday? I said, I didn't stay up all night yesterday. However, I've been staying up all night for more than 3 years. The doctor was startled and said, Are you a god? You're still alive after staying up all night for 3 years? Your headache hasn't killed you yet? I was immediately speechless. This guy is too ignorant. Let's take a look. Let's not talk about me staying up all night for 3 years. There are also many people who have stayed up all night for more than 10 years. I'll go out and stroll. I'll find a high place. I'll go to the ends of the earth. There's no wind today. It's a rare good weather. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.